Welcome, everybody, to draft night for the 2024 season of the ARCS Midwest Barbecue Saturday night. It's not Saturday showdown, it's the ARCS Cup Series. We got it. Both series by Midwest Barbecue. But Midwest Barbecue expanding to sponsor the ARCS Cup Series this year. A lot of changes outside of the sponsorship for the ARCS Cup Series. It's a new season. A lot of drivers looking to be one of 36 drafted drivers tonight. I'm Carmen, Sienna, alongside me, Kevin Young, to present the first of 29 nights. The A-squared competition, draft, exhibitions, races, and otherwise will be on ABN screens in 2024. We start here with the draft. 9 teams, 4 rounds of drafting. It's a little bit bigger than what it was last season, where we had 7 teams with 4 rounds. So extra picks there should make it even more intense. Over 60 drivers with their hats in the ring, either as full-time entrants or as part-time options in this draft. It is going to be an absolutely wild time. Off-season has been busy. Obviously, it's been busy across the board here on ABN. We've had a bunch of action with HTL, with the Platinum Endurance Championship, with ABN Champ Car coming up. ARCS has been equally busy. They've had SNS, they've had TNT, they've had the Detour Dirt Series, they've had ARCS Extreme, they've had OST. There's so many different series that drivers have been able to sort of come in, raise their draft stock before appearing here on the draft board for ARCS Pinnacle Series of stock car competition. A lot of things have changed. We'll talk about some of the bigger changes. The calendar's not 36 races anymore. It's going to be a greatest hits selection. There's 25 points races in this season, 9 less than what there was last season. The season ends now on Labor Day weekend in 2024. So that makes every race a little bit more important. Season starts about as we would expect it to. It starts February 18th at Daytona. There's the duels, there's the clash in 2 weeks from now on January 28th. But it's all still to play for, and obviously with 9 less races, it means the championship's going to be a little bit tighter. There's still a round of 16. There's still the elimination format in the playoffs, but instead of it being 3 races per round, it is 2 per round. Every race matters here in the A-Squared Cup Series in 2024. We know that the draft's coming up here. We'll kind of walk through where everything's going to end up being here in our little draft screen. For those that are tuning in that are maybe haven't seen this before or are new to the draft as a concept, there are 9 teams. The 9 team owners are not on the draft board. They have a list of drivers they can pick from. I think there's 48 full-time drivers to pick from on this draft board.
You would be correct. It is 48.
Remember that there's only 36 spots that are being determined tonight. So some drivers just will not be selected. There will not be enough spots for everyone to be selected here in this draft. It'll start with GearCats, one of the newer teams to the A-Square Cup Series. Emma Kruger, not a new driver to the A-Square Cup Series, but will now field her own team, the team that has been fielded in the ABN Champ Car World Series and Hyper Formula. We've seen GearCats on our screens plenty of times, and now we're going to see the GearCats brand in the ARCS sphere. Emma Kruger's the first one on the board. There will be a timer. There is a 5-minute pick timer on the board here. And we'll pull that up here.
To be fair, though, she has been on the clock for at least a couple weeks now, so she has had time to mull over the decision. And there's a lot of good drivers on this list. Just to throw off a few names, Joshua Gaiman, he right now in the preseason ranking, he's number 1 right now, and he went first overall last year to B-Tron Racing. So he is looking to try to go back-to-back, be a first overall pick here. Looking down the list, you got Seth Wansing. He is actually a team owner as well, so I won't throw him in that category. But Daniel Michelle, another driver, good driver, missed out the championship 4, strong contender right there. Bren Roberts, Brandon Proudfoot, found his form in Texas last season, has been kicking butt all over the HTL Cup Series and Truck Series. Another threat right there. There's a lot of good drivers throughout this field, and some maybe unknowns like Kyle Taub, John Hagan, Lilac Zier, Pacey Wygant, Jonathan Adams, just to go down the list. There's a lot of good drivers here that you could just sit here and say, hey, you could see her going any way here and picking any of these names in the 48. And the question is, she's had some time to think about it. What is she going to lean to? And one more thing to kind of the note here. The defending champion was not a first overall draft pick last season. He was a second round pick. That was Tommy Reynolds, who actually is now a team owner as well. But it's worth noting on the point that he wasn't picked first overall. He was picked in second round. Brandon Featherplace was picked late in the first round, first pickup by Lion Power Motorsports. So you don't have to hit the home. It's important to get first overall, but good talent can seep through. So if you, let's say you're a team a little bit lower in the drafting order, let's say like Black Acid or Speedmaster or Carolina Beagle for fourth, but the point still stands. You don't have to get what you can get in the round, and maybe you'll find a diamond in the rough.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a very interesting sort of track to see who's going to go with what direction, because the team makeup is going to be so much more important there, because there's no drop rounds in this season. With the 9 less races, they have the holidays off now. There's not nearly the time to make a mistake and then make it back up. There's no drop rounds like that, so you need drivers that be dependable in this season. And that's going to have a significant play as well, because there's a lot of new names in this draft board that we've not seen on ABN screens before. Some ARCS drivers will be familiar with some of these names, but for most of the teams, like Gearcats, not going to be super familiar with some of the newer names floating in. There's a lot of names on this board. You look at Alex Shimkowski, you look at Austin Mongold. Just kind of looking down the list, there's a lot of part-time eligible drivers as well. Blake Henderson, Bianca Constantinu. So that's going to be very interesting there. Yeah, Donald Ray's another one.
Wilkie, Matthew Leiter, he made the playoffs last season. So there's a lot of good drivers there in that part-time role as well that could be used in a substitution role. So it'll be interesting to see, again, what Emma thinks here. What is the best choice for her in this team? And again, Tom Sears last season took Emma on a bit of a flyer, 3rd round pick up the rind, and it worked out to a treat. She made the round of 8, and it worked out. So now knowing that she's going to have that in her mind right now, like, what is the best first roll pick she can take right now? And if I think right now my guess is Joshua Gaiman. It just feels like he's a safe pair of hands, but she could go really anywhere. There's a lot of strong drivers, maybe someone we're not even looking at. And someone that could be maybe, again, we haven't seen on ABN screens, but she has seen through other series or other series under the ABN or any other umbrella as well. So maybe she knows something that we don't, and the rankings may not reflect that. So it'll be interesting to see where she goes when she makes her pick coming up relatively shortly here.
Absolutely. And obviously, the timer hasn't begun yet. We're expecting the timer for the first round pick to officially begin here in about a couple minutes' time. Again, 25 races under the points system for the ARCS A-Square Cup Series. There is a couple of events before then that are not points related. The 28th of January, 2 weeks time away, I'll be in the booth manning it on my own in LA for the Clash at the Coliseum. That is January 28th, and then both of us will be in the booth for the qualifying duels for the ARCS Daytona 250 on February 4th. Those are 2 and 3 weeks away, and then we're off for Super Bowl weekend, and then we'll come back February 18th for the ARCS Daytona 250 itself. That's how the season's going to begin, and all that's going to be here on ABN Esports 1. Again, waiting for the timer to begin there.
And there's also some special themes as well as the season goes on as well. We'll kind of run over a few of those as well, where you may see some special paint schemes as well. For instance, March 17th, that is the week of St. Patrick's Day. You may see a lot of Irish and greens off in Sonoma, even though it's not technically green track at the time, but still a very green out situation. On April 7th, it is a autism awareness paint scheme special. So maybe at Talladega, you may see some schemes like that. May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, so we may see some Fiesta schemes. And obviously, Darlington for the first round of the Chase, playoffs, I should say. Chase is HTL in this case, but the playoffs at Darlington, you may see a lot of throwbacks. There are some special schemes, and also don't forget about Memorial Day weekend and whatnot for USA schemes as well at Atlanta and Iowa. So it's overall interesting to see what these drivers kind of use these opportunities in the calendar, with it being a shorter calendar, less time to make a run if you need it. And at the same point, though, you may also see some cool schemes kind of just pop up randomly when a certain week falls in under the calendar.
The timer has officially begun for Gearcats. They've got 5 minutes on the board.
Again, I feel like it's going to be a quick pick here. I think Emma's had time to think about this. I think she's obviously had a few extra minutes after we went live as well here. So she's had a little extra 10 minutes after. Obviously, she's had the whole day. She's had days before this too. So I feel like she's got a clue what she wants here. It will be interesting to see what she does. And obviously, other teams are going to have to be reactionary here. So we'll just see how it all plays. But right now, I think we're going to see a quick pick here.
We're gonna find out. Obviously, Emma's still doing a lot of sort of the sort of the evaluation process. And there's a lot of drivers on this list, a lot of drivers from A Squared last season, but some drivers stepping up. You look at Lilac Zier, who raced in SNS last season. Also, we've seen Lilac a lot in Avian Champ Car and an HTL competition. Lilac's going to have a really high draft stock as well, I think, at least for drivers that have seen Lilac in both spheres. I would not be surprised if Lilac goes very into the first round, despite being a relatively unknown quantity. It's going to be very important to sort of keep an eye on some of those drivers as well that may fly under the radar, because they're 100% going to be competitive. Lilac Zier, really good in these next-gen cars, phenomenally well in these next-gen cars, could be a really good fit for just about any team in this order. Again, there's 9 teams, so there's plenty of space to go around, but there's still only 36 spots. Lilac should be pretty well near the top of that list, if not into first round, very beginning of second round for those draft picks. Time has kicked off here, keeping an eye on everything as we run through here.
I will ask one quick question, let the people know us home as well. This is obviously 9 rounds. I will ask this to confirm it. It is a serpentine draft. So the 9th team, which is Profits Motorsports, will then get the first pick in the second round? Or is it a situation where Gear Cats will get the first pick in the first round, the first pick in the second round?
It is it's a snake draft.
It is a snake draft. It is a serpentine snake draft. Perfect.
Yeah,
that is what it is.
It is a
same as last year, but just in case anyone's tuning in new here, just to let them know, it is a snake draft. So top 9 teams will go in order, and then Profits Motorsports will have the last pick in the first round. We'll get the first pick in the second round, and obviously Gear Cats will get the last pick in the second round. So it's important for Emma to kind of get a good pick here as well, just because after this pick here, she's not going to get to pick another driver until 18. So 17 other drivers are going to fall after her pick here. So she needs to pick a leader or someone that's going to be strong and that can maybe help out and maybe just hope. The point is, I'm trying to say, is that if she thinks someone that could be picked up between now and the first round and the second round, she may either go for the best pick or maybe go for someone she knows she can work with.
Well, she's going to have a pick in no matter what the pick is in. ARCS A Squared Commissioner Ryan Pinnell will be in to announce the first pick of the ARCS A Squared draft in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for being here. It's always a fun night. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, with the first overall pick, first round, first pick, Gear Cats and Emma Kruger take Joshua Gaiman for the Gear Cats. So now I'll be on the clock. So got to go make my pick, but I'll be back down here in a little bit with my pick.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan, for jumping in and letting us know. Josh Gaiman, first round pick, was expected to be a favorite to be the number 1 pick. And that's the easy selection there for Emma Kruger. Josh Gaiman will go pick number 1 on the board here tonight. His name will be the first one. He was a first-round pick last season, and he stepped up just a couple more spots to become the number 1 pick. A former Championship 4 contender, one of the winningest drivers in ARCS competition, did a fantastic job last year. Unfortunately, I don't think luck was on his side there, but absolutely fantastic stuff there. And obviously going to be a big selection there for the Gear Cats crew to get their tenure in the ARCS A Squared Cup Series underway. A great job for them with Presidential Racing now on the clock.
Yep, just kind of run over some of Josh Gaiman's stats here real fast, just after last season, and kind of use this as a reference point. 35 races he entered, almost ran the full season almost. 5 wins, 17 top 5s, 21 top 10s. Ended up, again, coming just short in trying to win the championship. Had a great run, and then obviously a late race caution and an issue ended up putting Gaiman in a spot where he could not end up capitalizing and winning the championship. So at the end of the day, Gaiman obviously looking for a bit of redemption here this season. Obviously going to be rocking some new colors, no longer in B-Tron. Will now be driving for Gear Cats and the new debutante team at Gear Cats. So it'll be interesting to see what Gaiman's veteran leadership can bring to the team and maybe lead Gear Cats to maybe a successful constructors run and maybe help take that 61, presumably he will have the 61, to victory lane.
Yeah, now this is going to be interesting. Presidential Racing, obviously Ryan Pinnell, second year as a team motor for Presidential Racing. The team began to find its footing there at the end of 2023. However, a lot of new faces are going to be in this series. What does Ryan Pinnell go for in this pick? Obviously, a minute already down on the timer for Ryan Pinnell. It is going to be absolutely insane stuff.
I have a hunch, because let's take a look at last season. The only victory they got last season was at Texas, and that was with Brandon Proudfoot behind the wheel. And with Proudfoot obviously being in a situation right now, he is, just want to confirm, he is a full-time driver, 5th in the preseason rankings right now. I feel like if I was Ryan Pinella, you already worked with the driver. You saw how obviously when they did the driver switch-ups throughout the 12-12-12 situation, and they brought in Proudfoot to fill in for, I believe it was Donald Ray at the time, that they may have subbed him out with, or someone else. It's not really important this time. He came in those last 12 races and really carried the mantle for Presidential Racing. So if I'm Ryan Pinella right now, you have information on Brandon Proudfoot. You know Brandon Proudfoot's a safe pair of hands. He was consistently showing up, and he got you a win at Texas. I feel like that's where I would be going if I was him. But obviously, still a lot of good drivers here. Maybe he'll take a chance on someone else.
Yeah, you'd almost have to say that Proudfoot would have to be the favorite number 2 pick there, just with how everything's looking in this process. He is such a good driver there, but we're gonna find out here momentarily, because the pick is in for Presidential Racing. You're gonna stop the timer. The pick is in. We're going to wait to see what the announcement is on this. But the pick is in. Ryan Pinnell, who's Presidential Racing taking in round 1?
We are going to... We're trying something different this year. So Presidential Racing with the 2nd overall pick in the A² draft takes Bryn Roberts for Presidential Racing.
That's a big swing there. Bryn Roberts, another first-round pick from 2023. Staying in the first round. Did a fantastic job. A 4-time race winner in the ARCS Career Cup Series. Now finds a new home. The Ford-backed team there with Presidential Racing. Going to be fitting in right at home. He's been driving Fords. Been racing with Ryan Pinnell in partial season mode in the HL Cup Series. Staying in form there on top of the preseason action here in the ARCS Career off-season. Number 2 pick, Bryn Roberts for Presidential Racing. A fantastic pick there by Ryan Pinnell and the Presidential Racing crew, with B-Tron Racing, led by Jeremy Breo, the 2022 ARCS Career Cup Series champion, now on the clock.
Kind of talk about that pick real fast. Again, Bryn Roberts, and winning 2 races last season, won one at, I believe it was Nashville, and then won another one at Darlington to start the round of 16. It was either Darlington or the race after, when Sunday May Racing had that great 3-week domination there to open the playoffs. But Bryn Roberts, again, safe pair of hands. Bit of a sometimes consistency issue, you could say, where he shows up one week is battling for the win, and other weeks sometimes he gets in a bit of a mistake early and has to dig himself out of a hole. But definitely a strong driver, good pickup here, and again, another good choice here. We'll see how he meshes with Presidential Racing. Obviously coming back to the Fords now, and obviously leaving his old home at Sunday Monday Racing, and is now heading to Presidential Racing and the Fords, and we'll probably get a nice little Penske number now for him to drive instead of the 1, but probably will still keep the Coca-Cola scheme if he can. So obviously there on the screen there is some information there, obviously for A² Cup Series victories, former first-round pick last season for Sunday Monday Racing, and now first-round pick for Presidential. So now we move on to, like you said, B-Tron Racing, home of Jeremy Breo, defending, not the defending champion, that was last season, won the championship in 2022, was also the defending Daytona 500 winner in A², winning it last season, and also, even though technically not by draft, but did have the home of the defending champion last season, our current defending champion, Tommy Reynolds, who ended up driving for B-Tron in the last 12 races and also was the home for Josh Gaiman. So a place that produces and has championship talent that can firmly get you to the Final Four. So they do have some good scouts at B-Tron, and whoever gets picked here, you got to say, at least on paper, he's got a chance to contend for a championship.
Yeah, a lot of these drivers, and there's 9 picks, but you can easily, you think about how many drivers were in contention, how many drivers were race winners last season. It's going to be tighter at the top. It's going to be a very hard fought battle all the way through here. And again, like there's Josh Gaiman and Bryn Roberts. Brandon Proudfoot still on the board, and he was an easy top 3 pick. Does his stock fall? That is the next big question, I think. For a lot of these teams. Obviously B-Tron, I think he could fit in really well there with B-Tron. If he falls to Carolina Big or Sunday Monday Racing, that is a steal for those teams as they try to make their runs towards the championship again here in 2024.
And we'll have to see on that point as well. Obviously some more drivers, Daniel Michelle, very strong as well. Could easily be a good pickup here. I don't think brand profit's going to fall too much, but again, we'll have to see here. Obviously, we've seen in real life sports where a driver is expected to be picked up or an athlete is expected to pick up in the first round or even earlier and ends up having to wait a bit and ends up kind of putting that a chip on the shoulder and end up dominating out. Again, quoting Tommy Reynolds on that point. So it'll be interesting to see how it all picks out here, but I think we got a pick coming in right now. The pick is now in. I think Ryan Pinnell has joined us to announce what Jeremy Breo and Beachon Racing are picking.
Yeah, Beachon Racing with the 3rd overall pick in the first round goes with Jonathan Adams. Kind of lower on the preseason rankings, but Jonathan Adams goes to Beachon.
That's a huge development there. Jonathan Adams under the radar there. We've seen him on and off. We've seen him racing in the winter months here. Obviously, has been in HTL running in both the HTL Cup Series and the Truck Series Monday and Tuesday nights, as well as cutting his teeth here in the ARCS preseason, getting everything ready to go there. Jonathan Adams, though, apparently impressing Jeremy Breo enough that he's going to swoop in and take Jonathan Adams from the Carolina Beagle Development Program. So that's a really big steal there.
I was going to say Carolina Beagle, obviously having the next pick in the draft, may had their eyes on him. So now they've lost that opportunity right now to pick him. But speaking of Jonathan Adams here, has gotten at least one win so far in the Truck Series on Tuesday nights. Very strong driver indeed. Has had some great runs, maybe a bit of unlucky in those trucks. But again, Breo's run side by side in the trucks so far this season. So he clearly sees something he liked when he saw the trucks and the preseason test. So it feels like a pick he feels comfortable with, and he feels like he can make Jonathan Adams into a champion. So we'll interested to see how it all plays. But Adams ranked 26th in the power ranking between Wygant and Alex Simkowski off the board. Now that moves on to actually, I was going to move on to Carolina Beagle.
Yeah, it's going to be Carolina Beagle Racing that is next on the board there.
Up there. So we just want to make sure.
Grab the wrong one. Grab the wrong one. We're good there. But yeah,
just want to make sure my order is correct. Yeah. And Carolina Beagle, again, like I said, probably was considering Adams, maybe not first round, maybe second round. Now, plans fall out the window, but still, a lot of good drivers here. Proudfoot, Michelle, Wright, LaJoy, Feemster. If we're going to go for drivers not really as known in A-squared, we got Lilac Zier, John Hagan, someone in the chat's already popping off that I announced his name. Pacey Wygant, another strong pair of hands there, too. Go for Alyssa Pelletier-Sharp. So there's a lot of good drivers here sitting lower on the board. And right now, Carolina Beagle, that also runs in the Cup and Truck of HTL, and also some of these drivers like Stefan Oberstedt ran a full season last season in the A-Squared Cup Series. So it's going to be interesting to see what Oberstedt thinks and what may lead his newly found team here to victory.
Yeah, this is going to be a big deal for Carolina Beagle Racing now, because they literally... That's a big deal because they just took one of Carolina Beagle Racing's drivers there, Jonathan Adams. He's been doing a lot of work there with Carolina Beagle Racing, either racing in the 38 or the 88 for 81, that team.
The 88, yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, obviously that's a really big deal for, and obviously that's a lot of confidence there for Jonathan Adams. Sort of what we saw from Daniel Michel when Sunday Monday Racing picked him up in the draft last year. It seemed like a leap of faith there, and it paid off dividends last year as well. Daniel Michel was an absolutely a lightning bolt pick at the time, and obviously he's still on the board too, so that's a really big deal as well. Timer has been going on here for a couple minutes now. Carolina Beagle now has a really hard decision to make because Proudfoot's not a member of their academy. He's still the best driver on the board, as Daniel Michel is on the board as well. So this is some really big stuff right now going on. Already the draft board has been sort of flipped on its head with some of these first round picks.
Yeah, again, it's just looking at the situation right now. It's like you're 100% right on that degree. Obviously, I feel like he's also probably looking at Patrick Oberstedt right now as well, kind of considering him, maybe bringing him into the fold, keeping it a family business. Would he take that with a first round pick though? We'll have to wait and see on that point as well. But it looks like the pick is now officially in. So we're going to see eventually Ryan Pinnell come in here just shortly and announce who Prophecy Motorsports, the Carolina Beagle, I should say, Prophecy Motorsports at the end. Carolina Beagle will end up picking up here. And now with Ryan Pinnell joining us, I think we're going to find out who is going to become a Carolina Beagle.
Yeah, Carolina Beagle Racing. They're going to keep it in the family. And he drafts Patrick Oberstedt to race with him on Carolina Beagle Racing in 2024.
Yeah, that's a big deal right there. Patrick Oberstadt, a winner in the ARCS S&S series, has been doing a lot to get up to speed in the next-gen cars as well this winter. He's been doing a fantastic job in that endeavor. We get to see him on Tuesday and Friday nights already as things currently run. But now Oberstadt, a first-round pick. Let's see if that pays off. Plate racing's a big deal for the Oberstats. They've arguably one of the most successful families in plate racing in the ARCS community as of the last couple of years. And now they get to work on the same team here in 2024 as full-time competitors. This is a big deal, Kevin.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, Seth Robertson, if you remember, the team owner in question won at Talladega in the Carolina Beagle machine as well with the sponsorships. But Patrick Zoll, no spring chicken, strong at short tracks, very strong at plate racing. We know when Daytona hits next in a couple weeks' time, he's going to be a threat to take home that win. And with it being a win and you're in situation, all it takes is winning that first race. And as long as you can you consistently show up and stay within a certain range, you will end up competing for a championship. So Patrick, definitely a good pickup here. Maybe he could win to the second round. Some could argue, but obviously you don't pass up on family. And he feels like your brother the best, and he feels like that is the best choice going forward here. So now that will move us on to Sunday Money Racing. The team that finished second in the constructors looked last season looked very strong indeed to bring out a championship. Seth Wanza came oh so tantalizingly close to adding a third championship to his mantle, but sadly could not end up mastering the might of Tommy Reynolds. So ended up kind of taking next season here, going to take this and learn, had some good strong drivers under the umbrella. Daniel Michel could bring him back, for instance. He drove for the under the banner, knows what he brings. Obviously, Brandon Roberts off the board, can't bring him back, but still Brandon Proudfoot's there as well. David Wright. There's a lot of strong drivers in that top half of the field that we know, or even others. But I feel like, again, if I know Seth Wanzing, which I'm not saying I do, I feel like he's going to, again, keep it in the family and keep it in what he knows. Well, not family per se, but keep it with what he knows as a team and pick Michelle. But again, with 3:45 left, to see if he decides something different.
It's a quick pick. The pick is already in for Sunday Money Racing. Seth Wanzing missed out on a championship just barely last season. He's not going to miss out here. We're going to figure out really quickly who Seth Wanzing has picked for his first round pick in this draft for 2024. Wait to see Ryan Pinnell jump his way in here to make the announcement here. But again, a very quick, within 2 minutes, one of the quickest picks we've seen submitted here in 2024 already. And there's a lot of good drivers up here. Daniel Michel, who he picked last season, is on the board. You would assume that he might be the favorite pick here to make something happen. Whether or not that is the case, we're going to find out. But obviously, the writing is now on the wall as we're ready to go. Ryan Pinnell is coming up to the podium to announce who Sunday Money Racing has picked to start 2024.
Yeah, Sunday Money Racing with the 5th overall pick picks Brandon Proudfoot to race for him this year in 2024.
A huge pick there. One of the drivers that was listed as one of the top 3 potential prospects in the draft dropped all the way down near the end of the first half, into the second half of the first round. Pick 5 for Brandon Proudfoot behind Jonathan Adams and Patrick Oberstadt there. Sunday Money Racing has picked their guy for the opening round of the draft with Line Power up next on the board. A huge pick there. Brandon Proudfoot, a 4-time HTL Cup Series winner, 3 in the last 4 months alone. Obviously sharing the same equipment as the ARCS Ace 4 Cup Series. That's a lot of immediate experience that is going to be benefiting now one of ARC's leading dirt track drivers entering 2024. So big time move there for Seth Wanzing. That is a steal of the highest magnitude.
Correct. Again, great pick there overall. Obviously, he was not going to go probably any farther. Again, 0 for 2 on my predictions right now at the very least. It looks like they want some fresh blood in the team, but you can't go wrong with Proudfoot. Again, very strong in HTL in the next-gen cars. Obviously, if you saw A-Squared last season, came in for filling in for Presidential Racing and ended up getting a win for that team as well. So very a strong driver and definitely a good pickup. And we'll see how he can do for Sunday Money Racing. Again, had the overall, very not the most teams in the Final Four last season, but we're second to constructors, so they definitely can, if they can reach his potential, they know what they can do with him and make him into a warrior that could end up fighting for a championship. So that will now move us on nicely to our defending constructors champions. Line Power Motorsports. Last season, they had the regular season champion in blanking Featherplace, Brandon Featherplace, who was on the team and joined the team in question. So it's gonna be interesting to see here who they go with. Obviously, looking at the board right now, obviously you can't with Featherplace not being available to draft here, and Emma Kruger, another pick they ended up picking last season, also having her own team. A lot of the drivers that Line Power had ended up not coming back or forming their own teams. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But with Tom Sears having veteran experience in this series, there's a lot of drivers he can end up picking here. Who did he end up running the most with, and who does he feel the most comfortable with? But yeah, Brandon was a great driver. Kind of wish he could pick him back here, but with him not being here on the board, it's gonna be interesting who he picks.
Yeah, the pick is in. This is the quick pick. Within a minute, the pick was in. That was a huge ordeal there, getting everything ready to go for that. So the pick is in for Line Power Motorsports. Tom Sears saw who was on the board and immediately picked based off of who was near the top. You'd have to assume there's not many drivers left that would be considered must-have in this first round. Edward Marshall's a really good driver. Daniel Michelle still on the board there. David Wright really blossomed the second half of the season last year. 2 race wins and his accolade there. There's a lot of really good drivers up here on this board still. Who do you think's first round quality? We're going to find out here in just a moment. It's a really big deal going into this round. Ryan Pinnell walking up to the podium. Who have we got for Line Power Motorsports? Pick number 6 in the draft.
Yep, 6th overall pick. Line Power Motorsports picks Daniel Michelle to race for them in 2024.
That's a really big deal. Daniel Michelle, multiple race wins in 2023. A really good pick. Thank you, Ryan, for that information. Daniel Michelle joins Line Power Motorsports from Sunday Money Racing. A really big ordeal on that. Just an absolutely fantastic job there for the Line Power Motorsports crew. That's an absolute steal as well. Michelle was easily a top 4 pick, down in pick number 6. A great job there for that group.
Every week you could say he was a threat to win. Obviously, he's going to be the last driver to win the A-Squared Cup Series in Fontana, as he was the last one to take it there on the full course. Obviously, other series may run there, but for the next-gen cars, he'll be the last winner of the 2-mile variation at the very least. Also, a very strong driver of the road courses. One of the few drivers could keep up with Aiden Norman, Joshua Gaiman, Tommy Reynolds, and Emma Kruger. Definitely a top 5 driver at road courses. You could even say top 3. Could even be a contention to win. With 3 wins last season, came close to fighting for a championship, just could not make the Final Four, fell just a bit short in Martinsville, but is still a strong driver, looking to take that what he learned from last season being the Rookie of the Year, and is going to try to now take that veteran experience, or at least more experience now, to try to carry Line Power back-to-back Constructor Championships and maybe bring a title home for Line Power. So obviously, Michelle there, you can see his stats right there. 3 A-Squared Cup Series victories, 28 stats, what have you. Definitely a strong pick here. And now that will move us nicely to Black Acid Racing. Black Acid Racing, obviously the home of James Kerr. They had a team last season. Maybe not the most successful pickups they had of drivers. Had some strong drivers in their pedigree of lineups, but no race winners for the most part there. So overall, an all right team. Obviously looking to kind of get a little bit better here. And again, they could go with someone they know at least have a little experience with. Obviously, Matt Thorry's on a part-time special on that point. But looking through the list here real fast, they do have at least David Wright, sitting driver. Mike LaJoy was a fill-in driver in the last half of the season. He's power ranked 11th here. They could end up maybe taking a reunite here and picking Mike LaJoy, or maybe the best available driver left on the board right now, and maybe tire saving David Wright, who had 2 wins last season. So it's very interesting. Or maybe, again, they go for a Hail Mary throw and pick someone we're not even expecting right now. Further down, Hagen, Zier, Wygant, Simkowski, list goes on there at the very least. It'll be interesting to see what James Kerr is deciding. With a little bit over 3 minutes to go on the clock, we'll see what Black Assing decides.
And they can take their time and figure this one out. Obviously, they have 5 minutes to figure it out, and we know now what the direction everyone is going with on this is going to be a really big ordeal in terms of getting everything sort of out. Again, you have to pick drivers that you are familiar with, that you have at least enough knowledge on that you can work around them. And that is going to be such an important factor to this. Just trying to get everything really squared away for what your team identity is going to be. That is such an underrated facet to this. But it looks like the pick is in. Black Acid Racing, just 2 minutes in, have made their selection. And there's a couple drivers that this could be. Obviously, if we talk about drivers that Black Acid Racing had last season, there's a couple of free agents on the board right now that could easily be in that reign as well. We're going to figure out here very shortly who did Black Acid Racing pick out here. Wait for Ryan Pinello to approach the podium here to get everything ready to go. But now we're entering the closing stages of round one. This is a really big ordeal.
Yeah. The one advantage right now at the very least is if you're picking this late, you do get a good second round pick here, and you kind of could double up here. So there's an advantage that maybe you didn't get a superstar per se. I don't want to down any drivers in this field. There are some still drivers left, but if maybe you don't get a superstar, but you get two very great drivers instead, you could easily pair up one with another and be a great run for constructors, or even deep playoff runs if they can get on a hot run. And obviously the second round was a steal round, where we've seen a lot of drivers go that end up competing for championships or even playoffs. So it's still a lot of good drivers here. So there's no threat. Again, they had the time, they picked someone, and now the pick's in. We're just waiting for Ryan to approach the podium.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ryan. The pick is in. Who is Black Acid picking here?
Yeah, Black Acid Racing with the 7th overall pick selects Dale Markowski, our ARCS Ignition champion. So he'll be racing with Black Acid in 2024.
That's a really big pickup there. Obviously, ARCS Ignition champion. That is one of the what was one of the feeder series in 2023. A really big ordeal there. Markowski showing his mettle. Obviously, a champion in ARCS already. He'll be a rookie in the A Square Cup Series, but that will not be a deterrent. Black Acid Racing needing some fresh faces on that team. Markowski bringing some talent in that endeavor. A great pick there for Black Acid Racing. Thank you, Ryan, for that pick. And now we have 2 left.
Yep, 2 left indeed. Quick little update on Dale Markowski. He said he was the Ignition champion, so the feeder series. He did attempt 3 races last season. I believe it was in the 48 machine. Had some top 10 running. Not really, you could say, a threat, but obviously it was his trying to get under the bearings of the next gen. And now with a full season ahead of him as a rookie, we'll see how he develops quite nicely. Being the champion of the Ignition series, the developmental series, definitely gives him some good promise to be a first-round pick. So now that will move us on nicely to Speed Master Racing will be taking the next pick here, and they will have an interesting choice, being led by our defending champion Tommy Reynolds. See who he picks here. Who does he think will be the driver that leads him to glory? Obviously, having that championship is going to be helpful here.
Yeah, so it's going to be very helpful here. Obviously, we're going to see what he can do here. You got Speed Master Racing. I've got Next Gen Racing. I think it's a temporary logo we've got here for that team, but we are ready to go here. 5 minutes on the clock for Tommy Reynolds, who now enters, despite being a team owner for the first time. He's run the ARCS endurance program for the last year or so. So he knows what it's like to put a team together. He knows he has a lot of experience in that process. So that's going to be a really big deal. A lot of advantage there for Reynolds already having that experience. He's also going to have an idea as far as the drivers on this list that's left who might be a good fit for his team. Obviously, some really good drivers taken off the board already, but still a lot of talent on the board. Yeah, Reynolds is going to be very interesting for a pick here.
Hey, guys. Carmen, Kevin, I got a logistical update here. About a week ago, Reynolds actually pulled out as owner driver of Speedmaster Racing. It is now Next Gen Racing, headed up by Joshua Garrison. For Next Gen Racing. So they have taken the slot in the 8th pick. And their pick will be coming in next. So they're on the clock right now. Next Gen Racing with Joshua Garrison.
All right.
Thank you, Matt, for the information there. That is the update on the situation. Reynolds was a team owner, out as team owner now. Now it's Garrison, who spent the last couple of years on Prophecy Motorsports. So he's been a full-time driver for the last couple of years. Obviously, moving on now to become a team owner to expand his efforts in the A Square Cup Series. Fantastic effort there as the time continues to tick away now for Garrison's effort in this role. We're going to see real quickly here.
That explains why my list was slightly not updated in comparison to yours at the very least, as I had a slightly older list. But again, Joshua Garrison, all right driver last season, definitely riding a past couple seasons of Prophecy Motorsports, ended up taking 16 starts last season. We remember him, I remember mostly from being so close to getting a victory at Daytona to try to clinch himself into the playoffs. But now as a team owner, he sat at Prophecy Motorsports a couple seasons, knew kind of what it took to maybe build a team here, kind of learn behind the owner in question of Tommy Withers. So now we'll see what he can do here. And now is his eye for talent going to get him someone that can help him out here? Only time will tell, and I think that Ryan is here. The pick is in. I think we're going to find out the answer to who the new team in Next Gen Racing will end up taking here.
Absolutely. With the 8th overall pick, Next Gen Racing, Joshua Garrison, team owner, picks Mike LaJoie to race for him in 2024.
It's another really good pick there. Mike LaJoie got his teeth into the A-Square Cup Series last season as a fill-in driver for Black Acid Racing. Drove the 88, the last stanza of the 2023 season there. Worked with Garrison a little bit there, obviously in the off season after the season ended in A-Squared, and has apparently done enough to encourage Garrison to take a shot with LaJoie. This is going to be a very interesting sort of situation here. Mike LaJoie's stat line is fantastic. 18 starts last season, 13 top 10 finishes in the A-Square Cup Series. That is a really fantastic number. It's a good batting average, even if you're a brand new team.
That's a safe pair of hands that you can rely on right now as a new team. You can say, all right, go out there, get me some sim work, understand what we're doing, and it's a perfect pair of hands. It may not be the sexiest choice, but it's a safe pair of hands, and that's something a lot of teams will take over. Sometimes you don't need flash, you need substance, and Mike LaJoie is definitely a substance kind of guy. And again, maybe he'll take that next step. But right now, he will be the first overall pick for Next Gen Racing, and again, great pick. So now we move on to Prophecy Motorsports' last pick here. They will have back-to-back picks here since it is a snake draft. They will have the last pick of the first round and the first pick of the second round. So with this 5 minutes they got, which are a little bit in right now, 4:40 to go right now, roughly. Again, he's going to use this next 10 minutes here to think who's going to be my 1A and who's going to be my 1B. Kind of look at the list. You got David Wright. He's in the top 10 of the preseason ranking. Has not been taken yet. Is right now the only driver in the top 14 you could say this list has been picked. Kevin Feemster, 15th on the list. Dustin Painter, 17th. Kyle Taub, John Hagan, Lilac Zier, Kenneth Chaney, along with a few others, just to kind of go through the top 22 and to finish it out. Mark Diela, Michael Lawrence, and Pacey Wygen, just top 25. So again, a lot of good drivers here. David Wright feels like he'd be the first pick here the first round, but you never know. There could be someone that, again, Tommy Withers saw in another series he ran. Like, I like X, and I want X to be the driving force of this team. So we'll see what he picks for 1A and 1B. First 1A, obviously, since it's the first round, and that will set us nicely to the second round first pick. But right now, what is Withers thinking?
That's a really big question. Obviously, it was a breakout year for Prophecy Motorsports. Race wins by Dustin Painter, by Tommy Withers. Withers won at Las Vegas. Painter won at Atlanta. So overall, a fantastic a year in 2023 for Prophecy Motorsports. But they are also going to be really quick here on the draw. The pick is in. We're going to find out here in just a minute's time who Prophecy Motorsports will pick for 2024. Their first round pick coming in here shortly. A lot of names on this board, and now it starts to get really interesting because now you've got a lot of drivers who maybe aren't designated stars, but are known commodities. So now you've got that little interesting dichotomy, a little sandwich scenario there for a lot of drivers where it's like, okay, now you're looking at a very tight midfield group here, looking to find a way to break their way through to become stars in 2024. Drivers that maybe only came in and for 12 races last season, trying to sort of break through here. Have they done enough to do that at the end of round one to kick, or at the beginning of round two? We're going to find out here very shortly. Ryan Pennell is walking up to the podium. Who is finishing out the first round? Prophecy Motorsports selection, pick 9, round 1.
Yep, last pick in the first round. Prophecy Motorsports selects Kevin Feemster to race for them in 2024.
That's a good pick. Kevin Feemster, a safe pair of hands. Race for Presidential Racing in 2023. Has also raced in the HTL Cup Series for Unforgiven Motorsports on a part-time basis. The Van Buren, Indiana native, has some of the most, I think he's in the top 10 as far as starts in the ARCS A-Squared Cup Series. 60 career starts. He's got a 33% batting average, top 10 finishing ratio. in in the series. Most of those top 10s coming in 2023. So he has definitely done a fantastic job in terms of showing his consistency near the top of the board. Prophecy Motorsports will take a flyer on him and pick him at the end of the first round. And they've got another back-to-back pick here too. So they get to do this all over again. The timer for them, they've basically got 10 minutes to go with 2 different picks on this board. They will kick off round 2 as well.
Yeah, looking at Kevin Feemster again, safe. Like you said, with the shorter season, you need drivers that are going to be consistent. You can count on Kevin Feemster to be there every week. And like we saw, he has one of the more senior drivers starting in the A2 ARCS community as well. And he took that leap from 2022 to 2023. Better batting average, got more consistent top 10s, more of a threat, made the playoffs last season, more importantly as well. Cut it close, but he made it. Good pair of heads at road course, can bring home a top 5 on the road course when things are going around, can definitely bring the car home. So he's a safe pair of hands, will get you points, and will end up maybe qualifying for the playoffs if everything goes well, and could even get in contention for a win. We saw him throughout series in HDL trucks and other things be in contention for wins as well. So if things go right, he keeps taking steps. I think we could be seeing Kevin Feemster as a victor in the A2 season next season, but obviously it's a marathon. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and with well over 25 weeks ahead of us, well, obviously a couple weeks after that in breaks, but a long calendar ahead of us, it could easily shake up here. But I like this pick for the end of the first round. And now back to back here, again, I'm shocked David Wright's still on this board, but if it's 1A, 1B, I feel like you got to go Wright. 2 wins last season, was almost made the Final Four, was 5th going out of was 5th in the points out of Martinsville, just missing it by a couple fractions. I feel like that's where you got to go, but you never know with the series. It could go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a huge turn of the tides here. Prophecy Motorsports, we're going to figure out here shortly what their pick is. They have 2 on the board. They already picked one. They used Kevin Feemster for their first round pick, and their second round pick is apparently in. The pick is in for Prophecy Motorsports. They get to kick off round number 2. We'll see here very shortly how all this will turn out here. Again, they've already got Kevin Feemster on the board. You get to see that on the in the middle of your screen. Kevin Feemster, a huge benefit as a veteran experience there for the team. But now we get to figure out what they're going to pick here. Ryan Pennell walking up to the podium to kick off round number 2.
Round 2, Prophecy Motorsports with the first pick of the second round takes David Wright to return to Prophecy Motorsports and race for them in 2024.
That's a big ordeal. 2-time race winner last season in the A2 Cup Series. David Wright brings race-winning experience to the board, not afraid to put the elbows out. We saw that last season in his win at Richmond over the defending series champion Tommy Reynolds. A fantastic job. Prophecy Motorsports going with veteran experience and with proven success with David Wright on the board to kick off round number 2. A really good pick. I am very surprised David Wright fell out of the first round, but Prophecy Motorsports will make sure that he is not on the board to go through the rest of the second round. That is an absolute steal. David Wright now part of Prophecy Motorsports for 2024.
And again, considering where he was taken, even last year's draft for Prophecy Motorsports, he was a very late pick there. So going from what he was before to now what he is now and getting picked in the second round, that's already a step up. But again, knows how to save those tires. I keep saying that, but it is true. If we get a long race where tires kind of hit the cliff and you need a driver that can get there and get up to the front, he's your man. You want a driver that consistently runs the top 5, top 10, he's your man. So and even can put himself in spots, end up winning races. You probably could say the main threat he has, he's not that great at road courses. But with the calendar being a bit shorter and a few more road courses, ended up getting the boot at the very least, unlike in the real-life calendar, a few less road courses. And in the playoffs as well, only one road course race, that's Watkins Glen. He could definitely be a spot, especially on short tracks, to make his threat known and be a driver that could be sneaky fast and someone we could be talking about a bit more and maybe add another win to his total. So good pick there. Like that pick there at the very least. Thought he would be picked in the first round, but second round, that's not going to let him fall away that much. And now we move to the former Prophecy Motorsports, Joshua Garrison, and the Next Gen Racing team. And now, second pick up on the board here. We've kind of gone through the main drivers, you could say, through that preseason ranking. And now we're getting into the drivers that are not as, wouldn't say as known, but drivers that at the very least are all right, good, safe pair of hands, what have you. Maybe that's the most exciting thing, or maybe some question marks around them on whether or not they know who or what they are. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays here, but Dustin Painter is next highest on the board list here. Easily, always saw him be quite strong last season. Could be a pick they go for, or maybe they roll the dice here and take someone that we're not even thinking of.
Yeah, it's a really big. This could be a really big swing for next gen. Again, this is a new team. Josh Garrison's going to have a different approach to how they want to handle their team build. We have, again, a couple new teams. Gearcats is another team that is looking pretty brand new with the ability to do something interesting. Obviously, they picked first, but now they don't get to pick until picks 18 and 19.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a lot of mid-draft picks here. So that's going to be a really hard thing for them. Didn't mean to hide the timer there. Let's see, the timer's still going. Next Gen Racing taking their time with this draft pick. Garrison obviously has the ability to take his time on this one and not rush through it. That is a huge ordeal here. Obviously, first round picks up top of your screen at the moment. We'll scroll through to round 2 as well. We've only had one pick in round 2. But yeah, this is going to be this is where the fun begins. This is where all of the negotiating begins as well. Who do you think is going to be a good pick for your team? Who's going to be a good fit? Next Gen Racing wanting to start off their time in the A Squared Cup Series in the best shape possible.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Obviously, I got a lot of good picks here. One more thing I want to point out about Painter. I did bring up his name when I was thinking the drivers to go with. They were teammates last season of Props Motorsports. Garrison, Painter, Withers, Wright. So he has some experience with Painter. He knows what Painter is. Is that enough to pick him? Obviously, I'm 0 for 2 right now on teammate connections. So maybe end up being 0 for 3 here at the very least. So, again, a lot of good drivers here. Again, we'll have to see how it all plays here. But, yeah. I think that's really all I have to say on that point. It's just going to be very, very interesting with such a long list. Remember, 48 drivers to start tonight. We're on this board, and then you got even more part-time drivers you can throw on that list as well. But 48 with only 36 spots. This is going to be quite interesting to see where it goes here. And see how it plays as the clock still ticks down here under 2 minutes. Still no sign of Next Gen Racing locking down a driver yet. They are wheeling and dealing, waiting this clock out, bleeding it dry. They want to make sure they do their due diligence here, check the list once and twice, because you get in a partnership with someone right now, you're going to be locked in for at least a while. So you want to make sure you get it right.
This is the longest the draft picks have gone so far that I can think of here. Going over the way through almost in the 3.5 minute territory here. As we
maybe dragging out for suspense.
Well, also you think about just where everyone's at right now. There's a lot of drivers now on the board that could be very close together in terms of who you'd prefer. Obviously, we know Josh Garrison has spent time with some of these drivers here. But as we get ready to approach the final minute, it looks like we will not use the full 5 minutes. The pick is in.
Yeah, one more thing as well, just before Ryan announces it as well. This is going to be a long time before they pick again here. Again, they're picking now here at 11. They're not going to pick again for a while here. They're going to have to go through at least another 7 plus 9, about 15 picks to go here before they end up getting their choice here. So they got to make sure they get this right, because the 3rd round pick, they're going to pick scraping the barrel a bit more to find the driver. But with Ryan Pennell ready to announce the pick, we'll see who Next Gen is deciding.
Yep, Next Gen Racing with the 2nd pick in the 2nd round picks Dustin Painter to race for them in 2024.
Really good choice there. Dustin Painter coming in, a race winner last year, won at Atlanta, did a really good job in that effort. Just overall a really good job there by Dustin Painter. Did not get to race the full season, had to step away due to personal issues. But coming back here, full-time operations here, looking to pick up where he left off with that race win at Atlanta. A great pickup for Next Gen Racing. And now you got your first teammate connection on the board there, Kevin. You got Dustin Painter off the board there for Josh Garrison. Next Gen Racing have picked their man to get ready for 2024.
It's like an alternate team situation right now where you're just looking for the links of chemistry right now, and that's the first green link I've seen here at the very least. But again, these drivers are very close. Obviously, A Squared is a very tight-knit community, so obviously teammates mean something, but we also know, like, Wanzing, for instance, was close with Clash driver he picked, et cetera. So drivers are very close to each other. So teammates mean one thing, but other times it's just who you think will be the best driver here to go. So now that moves us nicely to Black Acid Racing, and now we're getting into that odd situation. We've gone through the majority of the drivers that were full-time last season in A-Square Cup Series. We've gone through the drivers that have fully ran that series, and now we're getting into the drivers that ran part-time or didn't run much or didn't run at all in the A-Square Cup Series or ran other series in the ARCS brand, or maybe just a rookie that heard the series or saw other drivers coming in like, all right, I'll throw my hat in the ring and let's see what we can do. So there's a lot of drivers here that they may not have information on. They may not have much information on. The only thing they may have is a Sim Racing Hub page, and that's about it they know about them. And now it's up to Black Acid Racing's own James Kerr to cipher through the information and pick a driver that can pair well with the driver he already picked.
And that's obviously going to be a lot easier said than done when you just think about the amount of drivers in here. And obviously, a lot of our drivers that have already been ARCS veterans at this point, you're going to pretty well know the chemistry that does or doesn't exist. That's the sort of the interesting thing, though, is like, do you take a chance on really making something happen for someone new, or do you stick to what you do know? That is going to be, I think, a very interesting, a very appealing sort of pick, especially the further down we go in this draft. Black Acid has the ability to still pick some really good drivers here. I have a feeling that they're not going to take too awful much risk here. They don't have to at the moment, but we will find out. We're almost 2 minutes into this pick here. We'll see what they pick out here. Give me 1 second here to get all this updated. Obviously, for those tuning in to the 2024 ARCS A-Square Cup Series drafts, I'm Carmen alongside me, Kevin Young. We're presenting all the preseason and start of season action for the ARCS A-Square Cup Series here as we get ready for the 2024 season. And it looks like the pick is in for Black Acid Racing. Pick number 12 in this draft. Third of second round, Black Acid Racing has picked another one of their drivers to kick off the season.
Yep, Black Acid Racing in the second round picks Joshua Battles to race for them in 2024.
Really, that's just the pick. We talk about maybe drivers having to, maybe teams swinging for the fence a little bit, giving new drivers an opportunity. That is exactly what has happened here. Josh Battles will be a 8 Squared Cup Series driver in 2024, picked by Black Acid Racing. A great selection there by Black Acid Racing. Josh Battles will be a rookie, one of the first confirmed rookies in this field. A lot of veteran experience has already popped through here. Josh Battles coming in will be making his debut with Black Acid Racing in 2024 in the A-Square Cup Series.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how he plays. Obviously, not much knowledge on an A-Square Cup Series here, but ranked P30 when it came to the draft odds here. Obviously, his ranking when it comes to Iris ranking, maybe not the highest, as I see that on this little preseason rank board here, but there's something that Kerr sees in him. There's something he sees that Battles will be a strong hand here, and obviously, if he's picking him this early, he trusts Battles maybe to be a bit of a diamond in the rough here. So we'll see how he plays, but right now, it's a good second pickup possibly for Black Acid Racing. Maybe a bit of a throw at the wall here, but again, they see something in him that may lead them to promised land.
And again, some of that just maybe team chemistry. He may have already worked with them a little bit. They may have already evaluated him a decent amount here in the preseason, in the winter months through November and December. And that could be a really big boost as well for that team, knowing that they've got someone they can work with here.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, as the time clicks on here, 4:19 to go here, up to the second pick when it comes right now to line power. So they've made their second way around here. Now they're up on the board again. Obviously, again, they had the first round pick here. They felt confident who they picked. I believe it was Jonathan Adams, if I'm not mistaken, who they ended up taking. So now they're in a situation of, all right, we got one driver here. Now we're up for a second one. Looking at the board here, we saw Tom Sears, for instance, he ran a bit in the A-Squared Admin Box, the Admin Box Cup Series a little bit. Could have some knowledge there with Zier and Hagen. Taub as well ran in the Champ Car Machinery, which that you can see coming up soon on ABN1. Little selfish plug there. Kyle Taub there in 19th. Again, another good pickup there. Could go through. Alex Simkowski was a driver that was picked up on a part-time basis, full-time. Actually, was full-time, then got bumped by Edward Marshall, but was picked up by Tom Sears last season. So another driver has a little bit of experience with as well. Going a little further back, you got Homebreak, Mongold as well, drove for Carolina Beagle in the trucks. Could maybe Tom Sears have a little bit of knowledge on that too. Tristan Catania was another part-time driver, now full-time. Could be a pickup here for them. So line power, a lot of drivers they've worked with, a lot of drivers they've come across, and we saw last season they went for that aggressive lunge with Emma Kruger, knowing that Tom Sears ran a champ car, saw what Emma Kruger could do, and was like, I want her on my team. So again, Tom Sears has that big scouting network. That's why he was the defending constructors champion last season, won the constructors. So now, what is Line Power thinking to keep that dynasty going?
We're going to find out here. They've got time left on the board. Tom Sears taking his time. He's a very methodical pick as well. So he is definitely going to take his time and use the most time available here. And he's in a very interesting spot because he is almost dead center of every single round too. So he's got a pretty consistent pick as far as the rounds that he's been given so far. So we'll see. It worked out pretty well for him last season, but he's looking for that next step forward to really compete and contest with the likes of Sunday Money Racing and B-Tron, who were dominant in 2023. Missing that last step, and obviously missing Brandon Fetterplace too. That's going to be a big thing. Their Line Power's going to have to try to replace here.
And that's why they picked Michelle as kind of what they thought would be the replacement. But obviously, again, that's a big pair of shoes to fill. And yeah, we'll see who they picked here. This is going to be, again, a diamond in the rough, someone they know. See. But with the climb ticking away here, minute 50 to go. They're on pace right now to be one of the longer picks here. But I assume as these rounds go on, we're going to see this clock bleed larger and larger just because the available pool of drivers gets smaller and smaller. And eventually, someone has to get picked.
Down to the last 90 seconds in the round for Tom Sears. A lot of drivers already picked off the board here. Obviously, we're scrolling through. The top of your screen, you'll see a scrolling ticker per round as we go through. We've already scrolled through round one. We're in round two now. This is pick number 13 in the draft. Pick 4 of round 2 in the draft. As everyone waits to see if their name is called here in the ARCS A² draft. Down less than a minute left. This is going to be wild. We've never seen someone miss a pick. Do we see that, or is it down to the wire?
Well, again, I don't think we haven't seen it happen. I don't think it will. I know Tom Sears is in there right now. He's calculating it. But I assume if a pick gets overskipped, then it may be similar to NFL rules at the very least, where if you missed your pick, next team up can get on the clock and jump you if you're late on the gun. So we'll see here how it plays. With just 30 seconds to go here, that clock is tearing ever so slightly to completion. And Tom Sears really dragging up effect here to try to find that person that is going to be maybe not the savior line power, but the next great step in line power at the very least. 15 seconds now on the clock. This is getting tight.
Yeah, this is a really tight window for team owners. And obviously, all the team owners are in the war rooms at the moment. So this is going to be very, very tight. Not a lot of time left on the board. Time expired for us. Trying to make sure there's not been a submission. Waiting for an update here. Timer has elapsed, and they did submit a pick right at the final moment. So the pick is going to be in. They got in right at the brink there. Wow, that was close.
Are we sure Ryan Pinnell was not using the bathroom or something while we were waiting that clock out?
I was not. He was taking his sweet time. He used all of his 5 minutes, but Tom Sears and Line Power Motorsport in the second round select Connor Knowlton to drive for him in 2024.
This is another driver that is going to be a relatively unknown an unknown commodity to at least the ARCS fans here. Connor Knowlton going to be another rookie part of the board here for Line Power Motorsports. Again, they're going with a lot of inexperienced drivers. That's like what they did last season. Fetterplace was a rookie. Kruger was a rookie. Edward Marshall was a rookie. They're going to be doing the same thing here in 2024. Connor Knowlton on the board as the newest Line Power Motorsports driver.
I mean, you see that happen in the real world all the time when it comes to sports, at the very least. I can think of a couple teams in MLB, for instance, the Tampa Bay Rays, prime example of this. They don't really sign big name free agents per se. They go for young gun. They draft. They develop. They build things up, and they get champions via that way. Well, they haven't won a championship, but they've made good playoff runs and won divisions at the very least. That counts for something. But at the very least, though, they're going for drivers that they may not be hot commodities, rookies, if you will, and they're once they expect them to shine, but they think they can shine, and they're giving them a nurturing environment to grow, be competitive. So again, Edward Norton off the board here has a high AI rating, but again, that's with a B license though. So we'll see how this all plays as the clock ticks on. So now that moves us firmly to Sunday Money Racing. They are up next with Seth Wansing. Last time around, they picked Brandon Proudfoot, fell to pick number 5. Now again, kind of in the middle, similar to what Line Power is, kind of in that half and half range. It'll be interesting to see what they go with exactly here. There's again some still good drivers on the series available, but what's Seth Wansing thinking here? He's got the experience driving the car, 3-time champion in A squared, or 2-time, I should say, at the very least. See what he's thinking.
And he did a really good job picking drivers up too. Like he was top notch in terms of his draft selections in 2023. You look at all the drivers that did well. Brendan Roberts, Daniel Michelle, obviously Seth Wansing was on that board as well. For a period of time, they had Cody Pennell and Donald Ray on that team. That was a super team for a period of time. It was a wild turn of events there for Sunday Money Racing. And they were so close to a championship. Had it not been for Tommy Reynolds there to really just sort of spoil the party. You'd have to imagine that they're going to try to do the same thing. Lightning doesn't often strike twice, but they feel like they might have the ability to do that. And they wasted no time. The pick is in for Sunday Money Racing for round 2. This is going to be an interesting pick. Let's see what they've got here. They did not waste any time. Less than 90 seconds. We were expecting that it may take a little bit of time. Nah, they were pretty quickly on that button to get things set to go.
The one advantage at the very least with Line Power going so long in their clock, they could sit there and kind of wait. They may not know what Line Power is thinking, but you look at the list, there's still plenty of drivers there. So they could say, all right, Line Power is going to take one of these drivers, but let's get like a short list here, 3 drivers here, and we'll power rank them. And if one of these drivers ends up getting taken by Line Power, cool, we'll take the second one on the list if they take our number 1. But if they take no one in that top 3, it is go time, and we'll grab that first driver. So that's why it was probably such a quick pick, is they were able to use Line Power's long clock to kind of say, all right, let's just think of what we can do here, and they give themselves a longer time. So now, with Ryan Pennell stepping up to the podium, we'll hear who Sunday Money Racing's second driver is going to be.
Yeah, with the second pick for Sunday Money Racing here in the second round, they pick Alex Simkowski to race for them in 2024.
That is a big move. Alex Simkowski was initially picked as on a full-time basis by Line Power Motorsports in 2023. Ended up being moved to a part-time basis due to scheduling conflicts that emerged at the halfway point of the season. Now entering another season, Sunday Money Racing willing to take a pick on Alex Simkowski.
I think there's a bit of concern there. Obviously, again, with the season being so short here, you don't want to take a chance of a high pick because of that maybe inconsistent, but maybe they feel like he's going to be here consistently. Maybe they got the word from him. Maybe he's kind of proclaimed that I will be here for all the races if you pick me. So we'll see here again on that accordance. But that would be my main concern right now looking at him, is that it's just with inconsistency, it could be a threat where you could be up a creek without a paddle if he doesn't keep consistently showing up. And then you have to pick through the reserves or what's left to try to fill in that slot. So again, good driver. It's just consistency is going to be the plague here. But if he shows up all weeks, he could definitely be a driver that you could say will be a safe pair of hands to get you top 10s. And maybe if the right situations align, could get you that victory. So now that will move us one spot up the draft order. Now we will now turn back to Carolina Beagle Racing. Carolina Beagle Racing, for those that were paying attention at home, they ended up taking a pick last season. Patrick Oberstadt is who they picked, so kept in the family. Now, obviously, there's not another Oberstadt brother on the board, so they can't take another one. But now, who are they thinking? Luckily, though, Carolina Beagle obviously runs in HTL. They run in other series. We've seen them run throughout a bunch of things. So they have drivers they've worked with. Obviously, we saw Adams in the Carolina Beagle Development Series. Obviously, he got picked up by B-Tron. We also got Austin Mongold. He runs with the Carolina Beagle colors in the Truck Series. He won at Atlanta in the Truck Series. Could be a driver they take there. They could also kind of look at the leagues. Obviously, it's part-time. John Smeal also runs with the Flags, but obviously not a full-time entry as well. And again, running an HTL gives them that advantage, knowing that, hey, this is who we think could be strong in those trucks or those cup cars that we could take here.
This is going to be a really big one. Carolina Beagle, again, do have a giant net as far as who they can scout, who they can recruit. Coming up here, about 90 seconds elapsed on the board here, waiting for the pick to come in. But so far, so good there for Carolina Beagle Racing. They can take their time on this one, knowing that things are pretty well and sorted as far as their first round pick, and there's still a decent amount of talent on the board. They don't have to go with the flashy picks here, and it looks like they may not be going with a flashy pick. Pick is in for Carolina Beagle Racing for round 2 in this draft. We'll see what they have here. Carolina Beagle Racing on the clock. Now pick is in, so the clock will reset and get ready to go once we know who Steven Oberstadt's team is picking for round number 2. Ryan Pinnell walking up to the podium. Who have we got for round 2 for Carolina Beagle Racing?
Carolina Beagle Racing, with their second pick, take Pacey Wygant to run for them in 2024.
I like this pick a lot.
I
Pacey
do too.
Wygant is a skilled driver. He showed his skill and has shown his craft across multiple disciplines in the HTL Truck Series, where he's a race winner, in the HTL Cup Series, where he has been a very bona fide, reliable driver for coast-to-coast racing over in that program. Wygant extending himself over to the ARCS side of things and becoming a new Carolina Beagle Racing. Ralph's going to be very happy about that one. The Carolina Beagle, the mascot for Steven Oberstadt's team, they've got one of their drivers, and that is going to – I think that's a sleeper pick. I think that is a really good sleeper pick for Carolina Beagle.
I think there's another driver I could say is close to being a sleeper pick, Pacey Wygant. I was going to say before that pick got made, they're probably going to go with someone that has HTL connections. I was right. Pacey Wygant, strong in the trucks. We see him strong in the next-gen cars. Definitely a good driver. Definitely a sleeper pick. Could easily end up being maybe a Reynolds of the series that you're like, oh, you're not thinking much of. If you don't watch HTL, next thing you know, he goes out there first week in Daytona, puts that thing on pole, and ends up putting himself in a spot for the rest of the season. So I like this pick. I think it's a strong pick for Carolina Beagle, and we'll see what's next with Beatron, though, with Jeremy Breo. Again, similar situation with Carolina Beagle. They have that wide net. Breo has those connections of the series. We see him in HTL. We see him in other series. He has that wide net, and I think, again, like we saw with Carolina Beagle, I sense an HTL driver coming up next, and if I had to throw a finger on it, I think it's going to be it's going to be Hagen, or it's going to be Zier, whose name is going to be announced next.
Very possible. I think it's very, very, very possible that someone like Zier could end up going here. I'm surprised that Zier's not been touched at all at this stage of the draft. Zier's a proven commodity too, so that's going to be a very interesting sort of dichotomy here. A lot of talented drivers that have put their hats in the ring. Breo's pretty big on having proven success on his team. So yeah, there's a couple of drivers you could really see as being options there for Breo's team. Obviously, they want to go back and be champions again. That is, yeah, we're seeing some very interesting picks in the second round. That is for sure. David Wright was probably the only. David Wright and David and Dustin Painter were the only two certifiably yeah, those are money picks. Wygant, a sleeper pick there, I think could really turn out to be beneficial for Carolina Beagle Racing, but it wasn't arguably the first pick when we look at Carolina Beagle Racing and all the drivers they've had on their roster.
Yeah, no. And we need to see what they pick here. Again, you said Zier. I think maybe Hagen to a degree because, again, Adbox Cup Series was strong there. Actually is the champion of the Adbox Cup Series. Right now got 4 wins in the trucks in the HTL Truck Series. Very a proven commodity, and we also saw him in the next-gen car in the Cup Series. Some good runs as well and qualify well. I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go, and I think with Ryan Pinnell joining here, I think we're close to hearing what Beatron exactly has up their sleeve here, but I'm interested to see who they pick here as it realms slowly to a pick.
Yeah, Beatron Racing. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. The pick is in.
Yeah, Beatron Racing with their second pick in the second round, pick John Hagen to race for them in 2024.
Yeah, so Kevin, your prediction was pretty well spot on there. They decided to go with Hagen. It's just going to be, and this is sort of reminiscent of how they picked last season because Josh Gaiman and Jeremy Breo had run-ins in 2022 before they became teammates in 2023. They've had run-ins on a few occasions in the HTL series, in the Cup Series between Breo and Hagen, and their teammates now here in 2024 in the ARCS for a Cup Series. Very interesting, but arguably predictable there. John Hagen now off the board. John Hagen's a quick driver, but is known for not being very good in these next-gen cars. He's not won in these next-gen cars in the HCL Cup Series. He's known for having a temper. It is a lot of cons for John Hagen.
Yeah.
Not a popular driver by any means in HTL, and I have a feeling that that's going to carry over into ARCS. But for Breo, I don't feel like that's a big deterrent. I feel like if there's going to be a team that goes and takes a flyer on Hagen, it's going to be B-Tron, but they are going to expect wins from Hagen. That's the big turnaround there. They want success. They want championships. They want race wins. Hagen's not delivered in this car. He's delivered in the trucks, but he's not delivered in the Cup car. So he's going to have a lot of pressure on him early. This is probably the pick where it's either a diamond pick or it's a dust pick. It's feast or famine, and that's going to be one to keep an eye on there. Obviously, we'll see what happens here once the season begins, but Hagen now has to prove himself to a championship-winning team that he can fit in with the champions.
And it can mesh well with others as well. It reminds me of like in the NFL draft or other sports where there's a prospect that's good, but there's questions on character, there's questions on other things that make him fall or her fall, whoever in the draft, fall to a certain point where they can be picked up by another team. And then at the end of the day, sometimes it comes out as why did every other team pass on them? And other times they end up proving those critics right. And it ends up not being a pick. So like you were saying, Carmen, it's a diamond or it's a dust. I could see it going either way here, but I know at the very least, looking at Hagen's record in other series, at the very least, he's going to drive the crap out of that car and try to at least bring home the checkered flag. But the question is, will he bring home more steering wheels instead of checkered flags? So that will move us nicely to presidential racing. And I feel like I know if this driver falls past presidential racing right now, I'm not going to say the name. I'm going to let it build some suspense here. But there's one driver I feel like it should be the next pick here. But if they're not picked now, I feel like it's a layup for Gearcats for the next driver in question here. But only time will tell on that one at the very least. Still a lot of other strong drivers on here that you could easily pick up here. Maybe some diamonds in the rough that you're looking at this list. Austin Mongol as well, like we've talked about as well. Jacob Delago, Lilac Zier, Kyle Taub. A lot of drivers here that you could say, hey, this is who I want. But Presidential Racing, it's up to Ryan Pennell to decide who he wants as maybe the number 2, number 3, depending on order. It may eventually be the number 1, the partner up driver they picked in the first round. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays. What is in store for Presidential Racing? As we'll find out shortly, as 3:37 is now on the clock, and it's counting down.
Yeah, time going to lapse here. Obviously, still a lot of good drivers on this board. Lilac Zier, I think, is probably top of that list at the moment. But you look at some other drivers available on this list. You look at drivers. Toby Estes, I think, is a really good pick on this list. I think Toby Estes is part-time, so I don't think he's quite eligible to be picked in the first 3 rounds of this draft.
I didn't see him on my board here at all, even the part-time. Maybe, again, you have a more updated board than I do. But at the very least, he's not in the full-time list, so that would be a good part-time pick at the very least. And we'll always take this opportunity to let the clock tick down here. When we get to that part-time section, there's a lot of good drivers in that part-time section as well. So even if you end up maybe not taking a swing here and you get maybe a 3rd-round pick you're not feeling great on, there's drivers like Donald Ray was a safe pair of hands that get you points or even close victories. Jack Mulkey was consistently top 10, top 5. Blake Henderson, you can always count on getting good plate run along with John Smeal. Matthew Leiter made the playoffs last year. So there's a lot of good drivers that are in that part-time sector. Edward Marshall as well. It's not kind of about him. Strong bare hands end up in his debut race getting pole position. So there's a lot of strong drivers here in the part-time. But right now in the full-time, there's still a lot of drivers. But I feel like, again, we just see how it plays. But I know what Gearcast is picking if Presidential ends up not taking the said driver I'm thinking of.
So time's still lingering down here. We're down to the final 2 minutes of this pick. Again, each team has 5 minutes per pick. We have not seen, outside of Line Power, no one's used the full 5 minutes. Presidential Racing, they're at the 3-minute mark on this pick, getting everything ready to go here. This is the 17th pick of the draft, 8th pick of round 2. With Gearcats up next to really have the run. They have 10 minutes to really figure out who they want on their team now, because they'll have back-to-back pits at the end of the 2nd round and the beginning of the third round.
Yeah, definitely. That's the advantage. Well, the disadvantage obviously is you get the first pick, you get that strong choice, but at the very least, being at the end of a round, you get extra time right now. Obviously, again, Emma's waiting in the wings right now. She was waiting. After making her first pick, she had a long time. Remember, this draft started around 7:15 Eastern Standard Time. We have now passed an hour, and she is going to make her second pick in about a minute 30 time here. So she's had about an hour to watch drivers get picked off the board. Same thing with President's Racing as well. It's been about an hour since their last pick. They've had time to sit and wait and think, and now they're going to get back-to-back picks before we see the part-timers go. So they got to make this opportunity count. They spent an hour, they waited it out, and now who will join Presidential Racing here in about a minute's time here, and actually even less now, I should say 55 seconds. And the question is, what is Ryan Pennell thinking?
We're going to find out. It's going to be very interesting. I have a feeling, kind of just going out on a limb here, I have a feeling that Elris George could be another pretty solid pick here. I have a feeling that they're going to try to look at something here. But with 30 seconds left, the pick is in. I think Elris George could be the pick, but we're going to find out in time.
I think that may be a third-round pick. Remember, had experience driving 22, was making strides, getting better last season, kind of like Feemster, kind of from 2022-23, made a leap. 2023, 2044, this could be the leap of Elfridge George to go from maybe a 15th place car to a top 10 or even a top 5. So I think Elfridge George's name could be coming out of the Presidential Racing pool of drivers, but I just don't think it'll be the second round. But right now, all questions will be answered as Ryan Pennell steps up to the podium to announce his own team's pick here for Presidential Racing.
Yep, Presidential Racing with our second pick in this draft. We're going to go with Lilac Zier to run Ford Mustang for us in 2024.
This is a good pick
Not
as well.
shocking.
Lilac Zier, a Ford Mustang enthusiast, filling in with the Ford team in 2024 Presidential Racing, picking up a guaranteed race winner in the ARCS SNS Series, in the HTL Cup Series, in the ABN Champ Car World Series as well. Wherever Lilac Zier goes, she wins races. This is a surefire pick, and at the end of round 2, this is probably the best value pick you can get at this part of the draft. Lilac Zier, a Presidential Racing driver, guaranteed to be driving a blue oval in 2024 in the A-Sport Cup Series.
Yeah, that was the driver I was thinking of right there, that if it was not picked up by Presidential Racing, that was going to be part of a 1-2 punch for Gear Cats. But now they lost that first punch, and now Emma is going to have to kind of scramble up here to maybe think of another driver. And maybe Zier wasn't even the driver they were thinking of. Maybe it was someone else. So we'll have to see on that point in question. But at the very least, great pick by Presidential Racing. You got a safe pair of hands that could definitely win. I think you're looking at sleepers in the second round. I think we just saw 3 sleepers just pick back to back to back with Wygant, Hagen, and Zier, 1, 2, and 3. And I think that will pair nicely with the other driver Presidential Racing picked up. So overall, I think that was a good pick. I think we'll see how it all plays. But right now, Zier will driving a Ford Mustang, a blue oval, which he feels comfortable with. And we'll see if that leads us to the promised land. She will also get a Penske number, so make sure you find the one you like the most here and enjoy that. But that will bring us now to Gear Cats. The clock is now officially started for Gear Cats. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say right now one of these 2 picks is probably going to be Pelletier Sharp. But whether
you'd
it
have
be...
to imagine, they'd have to, because you don't want a Pelletier Sharp to drop too far, because Pelletier Sharp does have a proven pedigree in stock cars. She was competitive in the SNS series. She's been competitive in the HTL Cup series. So there's tape on Pelletier Sharp that would make teams want to go after Pelletier Sharp if she somehow falls beyond these 2 picks that Gear Cats have. I would be really surprised if Pelletier Sharp does go, but they don't have to pick round 2. They can put someone else round 2 and then pick Pelletier Sharp round 3. I was assuming that they would want to go with Zier and Pelletier Sharp.
100%.
I'm surprised Zier didn't go immediately. I'm surprised that they went with Gaiman, but that's also a really good pick. They're looking at winning immediately. That's the big thing there. And you have to look then through the list of who could win immediately for the Gear Cat squad.
That's a tough choice. And obviously, I was going to say, I think they were waiting. Maybe Zier would fall the second round. I think, because right look at the chat right now, you can see right now Emma playfully kind of jabbing at Ryan Pennell. I think that was the next pick if Zier stayed up for one more round. But Zier sadly didn't make it one more round. And now we'll be driving President's Racing. And now it's a bit of a on-hands-on-deck scramble here for Gear Cats. But you're looking for proven winners here. Kind of looking for the list here. Kind of seeing... I don't see, like, you could, Austin Mongold, he won in the trucks in HTL. You're looking at some other drivers that maybe won in other series here, but there's not a lot of, I would say, surefire. Maybe again, my scouting pool isn't as big as Carmen's. Carmen obviously has a bit of a bigger pool. MLA off of a bigger pool as well. But looking at the names here, I'm not directly seeing a name that I'm popping out at me that says proven winner. I see drivers that are successful. I see drivers can run top 10, top 5, but I don't know if you got a driver that's going to be a day one winner. If you want someone that's great at plate races, maybe Austin Mongold, maybe Alfred George. Well, I think will probably be picked up at President's Race and maybe a revenge pick, if you will. But I just, it'll be interesting to see what they pick here. I think whoever they pick is going to be good. And I think one of them is going to be Sharp and the other one is going to be a 1B. And I think we're trying to figure out who that 1B may be.
Yeah, a couple of drivers I can kind of point at here. Edward Marshall is on the board, I think, still.
That's
another really good pick, I think.
Is he moved the poll? Because on my screen, he's part-time on the preseason ranking. He could have been bumped up the full. Yeah, he could have been bumped up the full. But if he is full-time, then obviously
that'd be
strong
an easy
driver
pick
there.
right there, yeah.
Yeah, that's an easy pick. If he's part-time, though, I get Kyle Taub. He's strong. I think there's a little bit of concern about him making the whole races. But he's strong. Good. Saw him in Champ Car, very strong. Don't have the much knowledge on the Cup side of things. We saw him, I think, last in the trucks in HTL, or maybe it was the Cup. One of the two. But
he's a Cup Series driver in HTL. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, he does have some experience in next gen machinery. Kind of looking for the rest of the board here. Kind of going by miscellaneous things. Looking at maybe I rating again. The highest I ratings is not be all end all. We're looking at Sharp. We're looking at Mongold. We're looking at Michael Lawrence. We're looking at Kenneth Chaney, who has an A license of a 2321. So maybe Kenny Chaney could be a pick here. 21 in the power ranking. Highest driver, obviously, we're now just under a minute to go here. This is flying fast here. So we'll see how it goes here. But I think, honestly, if besides Sharp, for some reason, someone's calling me the Kenneth Chaney. It just screams Kenneth Chaney. But with Ryan Pennell now joining us in the booth here, he steps up to the podium. Who is going to be one of the two picks here back-to-back for Gear Cats Racing?
Yeah, in the last pick of the second round, Gear Cats is going to pick Alyssa Pelletier Sharp to run for them in 2024.
This was the no-brainer pick. We figured that it was going to be a back-to-back 1-2 punch there, but with Zier now off the table, Pelletier Sharp kind of just moved up towards the end of the second round there. A lot of experience in the next-gen machinery, in the 7th-gen machinery, racing for over a year now in the HTL Cup Series, will now step up in the ARCS A2 Cup Series as well as the newest driver for Gear Cats Racing. Obviously, a lot of experience in the Gear Cats team, has been a part of the Gear Cats team in the ABN Champ Car World Series, where she got her first win in the ABN Champ Car World Series last season at USA International Speedway. And now she has a chance to do something impressive here in the A2 Cup Series. Pelletier Sharp, the French-born driver, off the board and ready to go. And now the Gear Cats up again. It's the decision. They've kicked the decision down the road a little bit. What this has really done for them is it's really kind of thrown them in and give them the ability to reset the timer. They've got a little bit more time now to figure out who's that third driver going to be, and then they get to wait until the very last pick of the draft to make their final selection.
Yeah, and that would be a part-time driver or something. So that's obviously pros and cons of that. But at the very least, they'll have time to sit. We saw an hour. Obviously, I don't know what the rate we're going. Maybe an hour, maybe not. Depends on how fast drivers end up picking here and how good they go. If they bleed the clock out, we'll hear a little bit longer. But hey, we're having quite fun here in ABN1, seeing who will be the drivers that end up competing for well over 25 weeks for a championship. And you got to get this right. This is the last full-time driver here. And kind of what we were talking before. We assume Sharp is going to be one, but again, Taub, strong in HTL Cup Series. Kenneth Chaney has a good I rating. Austin Mongold, winner in the trucks, was also racing last season with top 5, top 10. Could be a safe pair of hands that can get you with a little bit of polish and shine to get you something else. Or maybe another driver we're not even looking at right now, like Catania, Baxter, Rubert, Hack, Shell, Delgado. To kind of go through a few there. Lawrence. So just listing off a bunch of drivers on this preseason ranking. But right now, this is where it gets hard. This is like in real life sports. This is like the third day of the draft. You know, you're not going to get maybe a driver that you could say, hey, they're going to be the best of the best. But you're looking for drivers that can fill spots, fill what you need, and maybe be helpful to plate racings, or maybe diamonds in the rough that with a little polish shine bright like diamonds.
And we're going to find out here. Gear Cats is on the board still. A minute and 30 seconds have gone in this third round. As we approach the end, the first beginning of the third round, this is going to be a very interesting selection here. Getting everything ready to go for this third round. It does look like the pick may be in. Getting final confirmation here as to if that pick is in. And it is in. Pick is in. The timer will go away. The pick is in for GearCats. They began the third round with a selection. We're going to hear very shortly who that pick is going to be. We'll head it down to Ryan Pinnell in just a second. Kevin, who was your pick again? You said that you thought it was going to be Peltier Sharp, and who was it?
I'm saying Kenneth Chaney. I don't know why. Kenneth Chaney's just calling me out right now. I'm seeing on this board, it's either going to be Chaney or Taub. I think it's going to be one of those two.
Very interesting. It's going to be a very interesting selection here no matter what. I don't know who this pick is going to... it's so hard to quantify where this pick really lands. Ryan Pinnell walking up to the podium. He'll let us know who this pick is. Who is kicking off round 3 for GearCats?
Yeah, first selection in round 3 and GearCats' last selection of the draft. They go with probably one of the best nicknames we have, Michael Cheeseburger Lawrence, to race for them in 2024.
This is a fly-by-night pick there for GearCats. They've decided to go with a driver with no experience in the Ace Cup Series in the slightest. Michael Lawrence was being scouted by Lion Power Motorsport at one point in time. A driver that's really sort of stepped into their own in the preseason, in the testing that's been going on in the winter months here. Michael Lawrence coming in will make his Ace Cup debut for GearCats. He'll fit in alongside Emma Kruger, Josh Gaiman, Lily Peltier Sharp to make up that 4-car team. A big effort there for the GearCats effort. He's going to have a very interesting group to fit in with and try to learn immediately how to win here in the ARCS Ace Cup Series.
Honestly, I look at that. That's a pretty strong team here. Obviously, we'll kind of give our thoughts on what we think, who had the best draft, maybe who had the worst draft. But looking at that team right now, you got Emma Kruger, a Final 8 driver last season, made it to the Final 8. Obviously, I would say the luck ran out, but just missed the first 2 rounds of it, what have you. Couldn't make it out, but still a strong driver in that 70 machine. Then you got Josh Gaiman, Final 4 driver, multiple wins last season. Definitely someone that can lead a team along with Emma Kruger, good 1-2 punch. Then you got Lisa Peltier Sharp, good on road courses, finding her foot in the oval. We can't count her on ovals as well when the truck's in that. She's finding her footing there. Definitely someone with a little polish. And then Michael Lawrence, we don't got much about him, but the Cheeseburger Man is a rookie, and at the very least, definitely shown some strength in testing. So GearCats thinks that could be the 4th punch, maybe not the leader, but someone that could definitely help them out when going gets tough. So interesting 4-driver pickup, Kruger, Gaiman, Sharp, and Lawrence for GearCats. And that will move us firmly on to Presidential Racing. They will now have their last pick of the 3rd round here. Looking at who they've picked so far right now. Ryan Pinnell, Bren Roberts, Lilac Zier. Who we're thinking as the 3rd driver here. Honestly, you were saying last time, Carmen, that this could be Alfred George. We saw him drive the 22, then later the 2 for Presidential Racing. For the Bahamas man, could be definitely a good pickup here. Other drivers we kind of talk about, Kyle Taub, Kenneth Chaney, Jacob Delago, looking at the higher Drew drivers left in the power rankings. See what Pinnell does. Does he pick based on what he feels, like what he knows? Or does he go with someone kind of like we saw with GearCats, a driver that we don't know much about, maybe he doesn't know much about, but looking at it, looking at times, looking at testing, says, you know what? I think that's going to be our best choice.
We're going to find out here. This is going to be a really big ordeal getting into this. We're in the final round of this draft. This is where it gets very interesting, figuring out who's going to go where. Peltier Sharp off the board, Michael Lawrence off the board as the 1st round pick there for round 3 for Presidential Racing now on the board here. Getting ready to go. They've got one more selection to make here. This is going to be very interesting. I honestly don't know. Alfred George would have to be the favorite pick. Like the experience there, the chemistry there has to be the leading denominating factor. I'd be surprised if it's not. But again, like we've seen so many wow picks. You honestly just can't. You can't rule it out. You just can't.
I mean, we saw in that first round alone, we saw a few drivers like Jonathan Adams. We didn't think he was going to go to Beatron. We thought that was a Carolina Beagle pick, whether it be in the first or the second round. You look at other drivers, Dale Markowski getting picked in the first round by Classic Racing. We didn't think that was likely, but happened anyway. There's a lot of just throw the dice choices here, and we'll see who exactly it picks and where we go here. But I think Alfred George, like you were saying, Carmen, is the favorite, but not the guarantee. I don't think this is a layup like we saw with Sharp last round and second round, or how we look at other places like this is a layup, like David Wright for Prophecy. This is not a layup. I think this is going to be a choice, and with obviously the clock ticking down to well over 2:45 to go and ticking down, I don't think it's a guarantee either, because if Brian Pennell felt confident about Alfred George taking Alfred George, I think he would have been here about 2 minutes ago.
We're going to figure out here momentarily. It is almost halfway through, actually just past the halfway point in this selection timer for Presidential Racing, and we will not have to go much further here. They have made their selection. The pick is in. Presidential Racing has made their final pick. We're going to find out quickly who's completing the Presidential Racing lineup here. Obviously, we think we know who it should be, but we've seen a lot of crazy things happen here in this selection process. We'll figure out here very shortly. Ryan Pennell will join us on the podium here, announcing the final pick for Presidential Racing for the 2024 draft.
Yep. For our final pick, Presidential Racing is going to bring back a family member, and we're going to draft Elrich George to our team to run for us in 2024.
That is the safe pick there. Elrich George, a lot of experience there for the Bahama Boss from Nassau in the Bahamas. Elrich George, 41 career starts. He's got some top 5 finishes to his credit as well. Spent a lot of time trying to get up to speed here with the Ace, with the 7th gen machinery. But now he's got the ability to do just that. He's going to have time to really apply what he's learned here in the off season and get ready for 2024. Elrich George belonging to Presidential Racing. He will complete their team lineup in 2024. That is their selection. That is their final pick in the draft here as we continue to go down the order here. Next up on the list is Beatron Racing to get things going.
Mm-hmm. And again, maybe not the sexiest pick, maybe not the most, you could say there are better drivers available, but sometimes you need a driver that's family. You need a driver that's reliable. Think of, again, use another sports reference. Maybe it goes over the head of some. Think of Udonis Haslam from the Miami Heat. He was there for about 15, 17 years for Miami. And yeah, he may have not been the best player. We'll be honest with ourselves. He may not played a lot per se, but you know what he was? He was, at the very least, he was a leader. He was a driver that a person you could count on. He was someone that helped the team chemistry and the locker room chemistry and made on that point. So yeah, Alfred George, looking at those stats right now, 5 top 10 finishes, 41. That's pretty all right per se, not the greatest, but he's someone that Ryan Pennell trusts. Ryan Pennell considers family, and sometimes you just need that in a locker room or a driver chemistry. At the end of the day, it may be going metaphorically not doing well, but at the very least, you have that family, you have that driver that you can consistently rely on. It could easily help turn the tides when a season may be going bad, easily turn in the right direction. With obviously the steps Alfred George is taking, I think we'll be seeing him get more top 10s to his name, or maybe even a top 5. But that will be the pick for Presidential Racing. And that will move us firmly on. Actually, we'll do a quick run over of what Presidential Racing, obviously we kind of speculated was for. It's Ryan Pennell. Again, strong driver, got a top 3, 1 podium last season at Bristol Dirt. Obviously not going to Bristol Dirt next season, so but very good at the short tracks. Brian Roberts, 2 wins. Lilac Zier, definitely a sleeper. Definitely could be a leading factor of Presidential Racing. And now Alfred George could easily be a top 10 driver and a top 15, top 10 driver, and could even get some top 5s. Pretty strong lineup there for Presidential Racing. And now Beatron. Looking at who they've drafted so far, Jeremy Breo. They stole the prospect from Jonathan Adams from Carolina Beagle and Sean Hagan. They've gone very heavy HTL. And looking at what's left here, there's not as many HTL drivers here left. So the likelihood of them picking from that pool again is not. I kind of feel like they could maybe steal one more good old boy from Carolina Beagle, maybe take Austin Mongold away from Carolina Beagle.
We're going to figure out here very shortly. I believe the pick is in for Beatron Racing. It is in for Beatron Racing. They have made their final selection. We're going to figure out what it is for Beatron Racing here. Their final pick in the 3rd round. This is going to be interesting. Who are they going to pair up with this team? This is going to be an interesting squad, Beatron Racing, with John Hagan in it. We'll see where they lean here
I feel like just one more dark horse, Kyle Tubb. I feel like he's ran with Jeremy Breaux, obviously, when it came to Champ Car Machinery, a few races. Cup Series, they've also ran together. Could easily be another driver, maybe a dark horse pick here. It could be Kyle Tubb. But with Ryan Pennell now stepping up to the podium, see who B-Tron's picking for their final pick of the third round.
Yep. B-Tron with their final pick selects to draft Austin Mongold to their team for 2024.
This is a very interesting pick. Another driver from the Carolina Beagle Development Academy. Austin Mongold is going to be a project pick. Has a lot of cons to go with him, but there's some upside. Austin Mongold, if he can apply himself, can 100% be a race winner. We've seen that in HDL Truck Series already. He's already got a race win under his belt there. But in the ARCS side of things, not a lot on the record books for Austin Mongold to really sort of carry in his repertoire. It's going to be interesting there, but if he's going to learn, he's on the right team to do so.
Yeah, definitely a team, again, made 2 out of the 4 drivers last season in the playoffs, in the Final Four, I should say, were B-Tron Racing drivers. Obviously, they did pick up Reynolds, but they worked well with Reynolds throughout the season. So when Reynolds became a free agent through the midway point, they snatched him up, and that led him to a championship. So at the very least, they picked that point. But looking at him last season, 11 starts, 1 top 5, 1 top 10. So again, bit of a project, but he's already tasted victory so far in the year, last 2023 season. Well, yeah, 2023, the end of it. So he's tasted victory within a month ago. He's a pet project, but I think Breaux's ready up for the challenge. But right now, I think Carolina Beagle may be knocking on the door of B-Tron, like, hey, quit taking our drivers. At the very least, definitely a little bit of a frustration there. But that's what the name of the game is. And if Carolina Beagle really wanted him, they could have took him in the second round there. But anyway, so looking at one more pick for B-Tron, what they went through on their board, they ended up going Breaux, which again won the 500 last season, defending a 2022 champion, had a bit of consistency issues late, but made the playoffs. Jonathan Adams, again, a bit of a development driver, Carolina Beagle, could be a good threat. John Hagan, very aggressive, but definitely a win-now driver. And Austin Mongold, a bit of a pet project at the very least. And now that will firmly move us on to Carolina Beagle Racing, who so far have picked Stefan Oberstedt has picked his brother, Patrick Oberstedt. They picked Pacey Wygant. And now, again, another heavy HCL team here that's scouted and have a big net. Question is, where are they going?
Yeah, you look, there's potential Kyle Taub, obviously Kenneth Chaney, the driver you thought was going to get picked possibly in the beginning of the third round. He's still available. Mark Dela's still available. Jacob Delgado would be a rookie. You got Brian Rupert, who's got some experience in these cars. And then you look a little bit further down, you've got Jonathan Hohenbrink, a proven race winner right there. And Jonathan Hohenbrink won Atlanta back in 2022. Yeah, there's still some good drivers on this board that would be surprising if they do go undrafted here. Tabby be concerned about with obviously if he can do the full season. He's not been able to do the full season in the HTL Cup Series. Whether or not he'd be able to do so in the A Square Cup Series here in ARCS is a different question. But he's listed as a potential full-time opportunity there. Yeah, Kenneth Chaney, Mark Dela. Mark Dela we've seen a lot of between A Squared and most specifically in the Saturday Night Showdown competition that begins again next month. We've seen him a decent amount there to know what his stock is, and he could be an easy third round pick here for one of the teams later on in this round. You got Brian Rupert, who again has experience in these cars, has been around, and could definitely make something happen here. This could be very interesting. We're going to figure it out though. Carolina Beagle not wasting too much time. They had half the time left on their clock, but they don't need it. Their pick is in for the final pick.
Yeah, again, we'll find out very shortly here as Ryan Pennell will soonest join us on the podium, see who he picks. But again, if I had a guess, I'm feeling Kyle Taub. Again, HDL connection's quite strong. They've ran with them a bit. Feel like that's the direction they go. But again, been a lot of shocks tonight. Could see another one fly right now, and they could easily pick someone like Nicholas Schnell or Connor Gaston or David Huck. So there's no guarantee here. So as now we do wait for Pennell again. It's going to be very interesting to see what Carolina Beagle does as the new team on the block. And as Ryan Pennell is now stepping up to the podium, we'll see who Carolina Beagle is taking with their last pick.
Yep, Carolina Beagle Racing with their final pick in this year's draft takes Kenneth Chaney to race for them in 2024.
This is one, Kevin, you thought he might go a little bit earlier, but he does go to Carolina Beagle Racing. They pick up a draft pick here who has been silently impressive in the preseason here in ARCS. They've got their final driver to line up alongside Wygent and Oberstadt, and it's a lot of dark horses on this team.
Mm-hmm. It's a team that's banking again. The team you could call this, instead of Carolina Beagle Racing, call it dark horse racing. At the very least, they are showing signs of kind of just going for drivers that maybe not unknown, maybe drivers that they know are strong, but other teams don't know. They're taking a chance here, and again, this could work out perfect, or this could blow up in their face. It's one of two ways, but they're going to have fun doing it. And with Kenneth Cheney off the board here, obviously A-squared rookie here, don't have as much knowledge on him as we probably should, but looking at the very least, high I rating, was scouted to be in the top 30, was actually expected to be the 21st driver on the board of the power rankings. So that is where in the preseason ranking he is. And now that will move us on to, actually, we'll finish up with the point Carolina Beagle said, Oberstadt, Pace, Wygent, Cheney, very dark horse race team. But now moving on to Sunday Monday Racing, it's Seth Wansing will have the pick here. He's got his last pick, and along with himself, he's got Proudfoot and Alex Simkowski as two of the drivers he's picked so far. And looking at what's left here, looking at that top 30, if we take a look at the preseason rankings before this and look at the top 30, there's only a few drivers left. You got Kyle Taub, who power ranked at 19. You got Mark Delea, who power ranked at 23, and Jacob Delgado, who power ranked at 29. After that, you're looking outside the top 30s if you want someone like Miles Nelson, Ross Baxter, Brian Rupert, Tristan Catania, DJ Mathis, Cody Riggs. Bring him back again for a ride. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays.
Yeah, just a minute into the draft pick here, Sunday Monday Racing looking to make that final step to win a championship in the A-Squared Cup Series, led by two-time Cup Series champion Seth Wansing. Work to do for Seth Wansing to rebuild here.
Looking at some of the chat here right now, again, looking at one of the Carolina Beagles kind of posts here in the chat, Beachron really went Control-C, Control-V by draft board, so even they were kind of going back, kind of recalling from the draft. They definitely followed suit and now had to kind of, I wouldn't say scramble, but definitely had to go with a secondary option. But now, Sunday Racing on the clock. See where they go.
Yeah, time beginning to elapse here. And this is where you sort of have to figure, looking at sort of the drivers that's left available on the board, you'd have to imagine Kyle Taub's probably an option there if they're going to look at experience. Is that something you really go for here? Cheney's off the board. Mark Dila. Mark Dila, Kyle Taub, Brian Rupert, I think, is an option there. This is where it gets difficult. These final four picks are going to be really, really tough. Just looking down the board, because Cheney's off the board now. That is, honestly, it's not enviable because there's a lot of drivers here that are sort of in the same boat, just need a good opportunity to really shine in the series. Mark Dila has not raced very much in the series. Kyle Taub's only made 3 starts in the series as well. Delgado is a complete rookie. You've got Rupert, who's only made a handful of starts in the series, and he's been out for a little bit. Jason Alexander's only made a handful of starts, and he's not been very frequent and since the most recent updates have occurred to the car. So some drivers here, and then there's obviously some rookies. You look at some drivers that really can make things happen. You look at Connor Gadsden. His stock has fallen completely. Does he have a chance here at Sunday Monday Racing? I think we're going to find out here pretty soon. Just kind of looking through the board here. The pick is in for Sunday Monday Racing. They've made their last selection. We'll figure out what this team is going to be picking here very shortly. But it is final pick for Sunday Monday Racing for 2024.
Yeah. See how, again, they play this. Again, like you were saying, Carmen, there's a lot of people you can say, oh, this. And this is a downside when you get late in the draft. You're just looking at drivers and you're like, all right, I know they're good, but are they good enough? And that's what we'll find out here soon. So as the clock ticks down here, actually, it's already clicked down and the pick is in, I should say. We'll see exactly what Sunday Monday Racing's thinking. What is Seth Wansing? Again, he's got that championship experience. He was a finished runner-up to the championship. Now the question is, who does he think will line him up the best for winning a championship? So now Ryan Pinnell stepping up the podium to hear who Sunday Monday Racing is going to take with their last pick.
Yep, Sunday Monday Racing with their last pick of the 2024 draft takes Jacob Delgado to run for them here in the 2024 season.
Jacob Delgado was one of those, the top of the list that's currently left on the order here, electing against Kyle Taub. Delgado was the next one on the list behind Taub here. Obviously, Taub's stock falling. Obviously, attendance being a main issue there. They want a driver that they can make sure makes most of the races here and can be a contender for that team when it matters the most. Obviously, Sunday Morning Racing was really big on that. That's how they got all their cars so squarely in the playoffs there, with I think almost all of them winning races in that effort. So they want to try to do that again. And if Taub is not able to be a full-time participant, obviously we don't know if that has actually affected his stock or not in this draft. They've decided to go with someone that they know they could rely on for this 25 race season.
Yep. That is completely speculation. We don't know why Kyle Taub is falling. There may be a reason. It may not be a reason. Could be performance. Could be other reasons. We don't 100% know. But the reason right now we know is Taub has not been picked yet. But I feel like he'll be picked eventually here before this draft ends. But yeah, speaking on Sunday Morning Racing, they picked drivers that could win. I mean, look at including the top three of Wanzing, Roberts, and Michelle. They all won at least 2 races last season, at the very least. Wanzing was the latest. He was the team boss, and he took the longest out of that top 3 to get his first win when Michelle already got 2 and Roberts got 1. And eventually when he got 1, he got another, and he got another. So it's a team they drafted of drivers that can get wins. Obviously, Homebrink, who's also still on the board, will not be reuniting with Sunday Morning Racing. If he can find a home, he'll have to hopefully find a home in one of these last 4 couple teams. Moving upward, obviously, speaking of the next team on the board, we got Lime Power Motorsports with Tom Sears at the helm. It is Sears. He's already picked Daniel Michelle, and he's picked Norton to be the other driver that co-flanks him. So now the question is, what are they thinking here? Does he take a chance on Kyle Taub? Does he go with someone else? Does he go with someone we know last year he picked in a part-time role, Tristan Catania, or maybe even Richie Catania, go one of the Catanias? Does he look somewhere else? It's going to be interesting to see, but looking at that top 30 in the preseason ranking, even if we go with, assumingly, we'll use an example here. If we take the top 36 in the ranking and assume 36 seats, 36 rides, all that, it would be worth noting that it would be Taub, Delela, Nelson, Rupert, and Baxter would presumably be the next 3 to get taken off the board here. Actually, Taub, Delela, Nelson, Rupert. Sorry, not Baxter. It would just be Taub, Delela, Nelson, Rupert to be the final 4 picks here. But obviously, things change and plans change. So see how it goes. But right now, again, I feel like they would take either a ride or die on Taub, or they go with one of the Catanias.
This is where it's going to get very interesting because obviously you look at the way the rankings were in the draft here. Obviously, you cut Taub still on the board. Dila's still on the board. I think a lot of people are surprised that Dila's still on the board there. Delgado's gone. Cheney's gone. Miles Nelson, I think, is going to be an undrafted talent. I think he's done a lot in preseason. He's a quick driver. We know that. But he is a very despised driver based off what we saw in the Saturday Night Showdown series last season and his one appearance in the Ace Career Cup Series season in 2022. A lot of teams are not happy with Nelson there, so I don't think his name's going to be on the draft books here by anybody. You look at Taub, someone may take a flyer on Taub. Dila, I'm surprised, has not been picked. I would be surprised if Lion Power doesn't pick Taub or Dila here. Brian Rupert's got a lot of experience. Jason Alexander's a decent option here. Jonathan Homebrink should be selected. I'm surprised he's dropped down to 43rd in this draft order here. Yeah, there's a lot of drivers I think are in the option here. I think it's pretty well painted clear, though, that if Kyle Taub's drafted at all, he may be a very final pick in this selection.
That may be because, again, he's a good pair of hands. He's fast. It's just consistency may be the problem here. And again, if you're a team like, again, you've had a late first round pick, you're like a Speedmaster or Speedmaster, Next Gen or Prophecy or even Black Acid, you may take a chance and be like, okay, we have some good drivers here, but let's get one more consistent drivers. And again, like the analogy of the prospect that maybe has character issues or other reasons, obviously it's not character issues, it's Kyle Taub, but in this case, sometimes he waits and he falls, and eventually you find a driver that can help you out of the stick in the mud. But now with the pick is now officially in, and when Ryan Pennell stepped into the podium, find out what the defending Constructor Series champion will pick for the last pick to try to defend their title.
Yep, Lime Power Motorsport. They are going with Ross Baxter for their final pick for the 2024 draft for them.
This is another incoming rookie with no prior experience in the Ace Career Cup Series season, just doing what he can to impress in the preseason, and he's impressed enough for Lime Power Motorsports to take their final pick and select Ross Baxter to put him in contention here, see if they can make any more headwind here and now what is going to be an even more competitive A-Square Cup Series season in 2024.
That was 35th on the power rankings right there. Ross Baxter, 1819 I rating with a B license. Obviously a rookie. Don't have as much information on him as we need. But that's when you are a debutant and a rookie, you obviously are going, this is where you're going to impress. And obviously next season, or if he drives another series, we'll definitely have a bit of information on him from this. But right now, this is the stepping stone, even though they're not technically stepping stone. This is the step to try to make a name for himself in this Cup Series. And we'll see if he can replay the faith that Lion Power gave in him. But again, looking at the lineup one more time now, it's Sears, Michelle, Norton, and Baxter, your top 4. And it's gonna be interesting. That's a pretty good lineup. Maybe not this. It's a very grit. It's a very consistent, not the sexy choice, but definitely a very consistent kind of team here. So we'll see how this all plays. And now Black Acid Racing. Looking at their picks right now. James Kerr is obviously the team owner. It was Mark Simkowski they picked up in the first round, and then they picked up Joshua Battles in the second pick right now. They've gone kind of against the grain here of what the ranking said. They went with a pick that was 28th and 30th for their first 2-round picks here. So as wisdom kind of shows here, they've not kind of followed this preseason ranking trend. They haven't gone with drivers. Obviously, good top, the drivers at the top, they were obviously picked late before they got their pick. But they still had drivers like LaJoy on the board, Wright, Beamster, at both those picks in the first round, and even somewhat the second round with Painter off the board as well. So they had picks of drivers, and they've gone against wisdom and went for drivers a little bit lower down the pool. Obviously, last season, it didn't really 100% work out for them in that call. With this season being season 2, they feel like this is their way forward. They go for drivers that they think that no one else wants, and they're going to turn it into a home, and they're going to be kind of the chip on the shoulders team. They're going to get wins that way. And looking at what's left, again, we said Delayla, which I think Carmen said we'd be shocked if it was not picked here. Kyle Taub, maybe a fly-by-night, a pick of the last of the death for an option. Obviously, Miles Nelson's may be if it's a desperation pick, but highly likely picked. And then you got, we'll kind of go through some names here real fast. Who's left? Brian Rupert, Jason Alexander, Tristan Catania, Ryan Gomes, DJ Matish, Cody Riggs. He ran some races last year in the 3 now, A squared. Jonathan Homebrink, kind of shocked he hasn't picked yet, ranked 43rd. Richie Catania, Patrick John Allen Jr., David Hawk, Connor Godson, and Nicholas Schell are the last drivers here of the 48 to be picked that we saw before. And again, 12 will go home without rides and will have to find rides with other drivers dropping out. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays. But right now, it could go anywhere as the pick seems now to be officially in. So now we are waiting for Ryan Pinnell to jump on the board. And who is Black Acid favoriting towards?
And there's a couple of drivers that this could be. Obviously, you look at Homebrink, a proven race winner in the A-Square Cup Series. Brian Rupert drove with the team in periods last season. So there's team experience there for between both of those drivers. I think you'd have to say one of those two might be leading the way. They've been seem to be very leaning on experience in this draft. As you say, it has to be one of those two with only 2 picks left. And I would assume that if Homebrink does fall, I have a feeling that Next Gen or Prophecy would be more than willing to pick him up. Prophecy, his former home, Homebrink used to drive with Prophecy, won his race with Prophecy.
Yeah. So anyway, Ryan Pinnell up on the podium here. We'll see who Black Acid Racing is going to pick.
Yeah, Black Acid Racing with their final pick in this draft takes Brian Rupert to race for them in 2024.
This was a pretty common sense pick, a former driver for Black Acid Racing, reunited with the team going into 2024. He will complete the Black Acid Racing lineup.
Yep. That will be who it is. It's going to be Kerr, Markowski, Battles, and Rupert will be the 4 drivers they pick here. Again, it's not the most flashy, but they feel confident in what they got, and we'll see if that plays out from this season. Obviously, Brian Rupert drove for this team, so again, experience kind of matters here. And now, with only 2 picks left, you got Next Gen Racing with Joshua Garrison and Prophecy Motorsports are the last 2 on the board here, 1A, 1B, to pick 2 drivers. And again, at the end of this, again, it could be Taub and Delayla, but if someone goes against the grain, we're already looking at one of those 2 drivers that you could say maybe should have been picked, but ended up not getting picked for one reason or another. And yeah, we'll see how this plays. But with Next Gen on the clock, I feel like maybe this is where Homebrink goes, because Homebrink he drove for Sunday Money Racing last season. He's shown some experience. Obviously, Garrison had some run-ins. I don't say run-ins, but ran around where Homebrink was. Had some experience with each other. I feel like this is where Homebrink may find his home here or Prophecy. But again, 3 good drivers in Taub, Delela, and Homebrink. And one of them is going to be sitting on a couch to at least start the season.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see what Josh Garrison picks. He's been pretty on the money in terms of trying to get his picks pretty well sorted out here. We'll see what he goes with here. But yeah, a couple wild cards here with Prophecy Motorsports. I would assume that if Homebrink falls to Prophecy, they'll pick him up. But that is a hard conversation to figure out here. Because again, there's still several talented drivers on the board waiting to be drafted here. So you look at Homebrink, I think is a very viable option. Kyle Talbot still on the board as well. Yeah, still some really good options here. Just sort of just waiting to be picked here. It's going to be this will be difficult. This is going to be a not straightforward selection here. You got Catania. Trish Catania's on the board as well. He's got a veteran experience as well. Mark Deala's still on the board too. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a couple of really big options here. Obviously, Next Gen have spoils here. This is going to be a value pick almost no matter who they pick at this point in the draft. There's several talented drivers here. It's just a matter of what direction they decide they feel like going to kick off their campaign here in the ARCS Cup Series.
Yeah. He's going so many different directions. Like it's weird because like when you get to the opening part of the draft, it's like, oh yeah, I can see where there's like that question mark of, all right, who are they going to take? But you can see kind of being in a realm of drivers. But here, when you get to the end, it's like the 7th round. It's like like a sporting event or whatever, in draft and whatever. It's to a point where it's so many choices. There's so many different drivers. You're almost blinded by choice to a degree. And obviously with Next Gen kind of running this clock out with 2:30 to go, there's no guaranteed choice here. There's no driver I'm saying right now that they look like, and there's because they had that guaranteed driver, that driver on their scouting board right now, they felt like, all right, pull the trigger, let's go. They would have picked them 2 minutes ago. But right now with them running this clock down, they're doing the Red Suns. They may have had like maybe 2 drivers left on the draft board, 3. And now they're kind of like, okay, they're blinded by choice. Like, do I go with this one? Do I go with this one? Do I go with this one? And it could be any driver that could be promising, helpful, but you never know. And right now, that's what Next Gen wants, as being obviously a new team, a next team in line in the Next Gen machinery. It's going to be interesting to see what Next Gen does and what do they think. Being one of the new debutante teams, along with Carolina Beagle and Gear Cats, what does their future hold?
Over 3 minutes have elapsed in this timer, the penultimate pick in the draft. And still waiting for that pick. They're down to the last 90 seconds here in their selection. This is going to be very interesting to see how this goes here. And it looks like their pick just submitted here with 90 seconds left. They have made their final pick.
All right.
So we are not too far away from figuring out who's going to be in for Next Gen Racing. Oh, so many good picks here in this draft. This is going to be very entertaining to see who they've picked here, because there are so many good drivers still on the board. But now we have to wait here. This is where we wait sort of with bated breath, just sort of see who they've picked here, because so many drivers now. There's 2 spots left right now. One submitted a pick. Ryan Pinnell rocking up to the podium, letting us know who the next to last pick in the draft is going to be.
Yep, Next Gen Racing, with their last pick in the draft, takes Richie Catania to come back full-time in 2024.
This is one out of left field a little bit. Catania coming back to full-time competition. Last race full-time in 2022. Has not raced much full-time competition at all in the last year and change. But returning to the fold in ARCS Cup Series competition, he'll join Josh Garrison's team to kick off the 2024 season.
Yep, and that will be an interesting lineup here with Josh Garrison. He's picked LaJoy, Painter, and Catania. A bit of a run back, if you will, of what Prophecy Motorsports was to a degree last season. kind of, I wouldn't say raiding the cabinet, but at the very least, picking some of the pieces out, trying to make something happen here. And they got a pretty all right lineup here. So we interested to see what Next Gen does coming this up season. But Catania, back to full-time competition. Hopefully I wouldn't say ring rust, because that's more of a wrestling term, but hopefully the rust doesn't kind of stay on the gears too long, and he can find his form quite quickly. And now, we're to the final 5 minutes of the last pick of the third round here. One driver left. Prophecy Motorsports and Tommy Withers will decide who will make up the last drivers of the full field here of 36 cars. Again, looking at this list, you got Kyle Taub, Mark DeLela, Miles Nelson, Jason Alexander. Some drivers right there. You could say strong cars. Even Jonathan Holmbrink. 5 drivers right there. And remember, Holmbrink drove last week for Sunday Money Racing, but obviously drove last season as well, full-time along Cody Riggs. So there's a lot of good drivers here. And at least after this, one of them could find a home. Maybe it's Taub. Maybe it's Salela. Maybe it's neither. Maybe it's someone like David Huck. Maybe Cody Riggs. Ryan Gomes. There could be someone here that's going to get their dreams fulfilled, find the full-time ride. And for everyone else, they're going to have to be in substitution roles and hoping an open opportunity comes down the road where they can maybe jump in if necessary.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very interesting. Just again, like there's so many good drivers that are left here. Just one pick left on the board. Kyle Taub. You look at Mark Dila. You look at Tristan Catania still on the board. You look at so many drivers. Jonathan Holmbrink on the board still, I think, has become the favorite to take this final spot. That's sort of just where we're at right now. It's so hard to figure out what direction Prophecy Motorsport wants to go because, again, they had a breakout season. They had multiple race winners for the first time in this series. They want to try to continue that. Obviously, that is their main goal. But how do they make that happen?
No, that's the question right now. Tommy Withers is asking himself. This is where everyone in their rooms was asking themselves at the start of this draft, what can I do to make myself a contender? What can I do to make myself a champion? And right now, there's a lot of drivers here you could say they could pick. Looking again what they've picked so far in this draft, they've picked Kevin Feemster, a safe pair of hands, playoff driver last season, is making improvement steps on the lead. Then you got David Wright, tire saver, got 2 wins last season, made the playoffs well, almost made the Final Four. 2 strong drivers right there. Who could be that third driver they feel like is going to be all right? That's them. And they've waited over about an hour since their last pick. They picked David Wright around the 8 o'clock mark, right around there, give or take, maybe late 7:30, 7:50 range Eastern Standard Time. They have been a long time on the clock right now, just sitting and waiting and watching, just the hope that the driver could fall through. And now it's coming like just quickly. Time is always moving forward. And with just 2 minutes to go here, they will pick a driver and they'll make dreams of one, but they'll kill the dreams of others. And they are taking their time here. They feel like they want to do their homework. They want to get this one. They do not want to sit and wait and be like, okay, we'll pick this quickly, like ripping off a Band-Aid. They want to make sure they get someone because, again, it could be the making or breaking. It could be a chance to win a Constructors' Championship or even a Drivers' Championship, or be just a wasted season here with this pick. So 1:30 to go and ticking down. They are going to wait this clock out.
And they've got all the time in the world because nothing's going to intercept them from this pick. They don't have to worry about someone else leapfrogging them at this point. They are pretty well set in stone here.
Yeah, because after this, the part-time drivers and full-time driver not part, so there's no real penalty, so they don't have to worry. And even then, even if they'd have the next pick anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So they can take the time, get this right, and pick who they want to pick. A minute to go, under a minute to go here. Again, they're trying, like, we know Tom Sears, he waited to the last minute in that second round pick where he picked, driver in question was Edward Norton. They picked Norton. They waited the longest time to pick him. And it looks like we're waiting this out. To signify the gong of the drafts, Prophecy's going to wait this one out. And again, it's going to be
keeping an eye here. There's no notification that they have made any inroads on this.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's a shame because, like I said, whoever they pick, again, I know I've said it twice. I'll say it a third time just for the people in the back. one driver at the end of the day is going to be happy. I'm looking at that theater right now. Most of those drivers have been picked, but a few haven't yet. Patrick Allen's in there. He hasn't been picked yet. And again, it could be a heartbreak to kind of sit there and see your name not get picked here. So as the clock is now officially hit 0, we'll see if there's any sign of a blink from Proximity Motorsports.
Yeah, they're taking their time here, making sure that they get all of this right.
So while we take the second here as that happens out, we'd like to thank everyone that tuned in for tonight's A-Squared Cup Draft Night. Thanks for all tuning in here. Good fun seeing you here, and glad you were able to kind of join us in the Just Chatting. Not normal what we do on this channel, usually we're broadcasting, racing, or whatever, but filling in the Draft 4 series you'll be seeing here. We thank you for all tuning in and staying out throughout all the 35 picks, about to be 36, when Prophecy Motorsports concludes here. So if you look in the chat and also look down if you're watching live in the description, you can find out where social medias and all that to follow. And also you can go to the ABN website to find out the full schedule of the upcoming A-Squared Cup Series.
Time has elapsed, and they have made their selection here. Again, there's no incentive for them to really sort of move here on this, but they have made their selection. Their pick is in. Again, we think that Homebrink should be the favorite here, but we'll find out here in just a minute exactly who's going to go where here. And again, like we're going to look at the draft here. 3 rounds will determine the 36 drivers racing full-time for the A-Squared Cup Series Championship here. It all comes down to this. One driver is going to be a part of it. Ryan Pennell walking up to the podium to determine the last pick of the 2024 draft. Prophecy Motorsports, who have they picked?
Yep, Mr. Irrelevant for 2024 for the A-Squared season. Prophecy Motorsports selects Tristan Catania to race for them. So that will wrap up our draft. But a lot of fun, and thank you all for doing this, and excited to race.
Absolutely, and the racing begins in January 28th, the Coliseum Clash. To kick things off here for the ARCS A-Squared Cup Series season, Tristan Catania, Prophecy Motorsports picking Catania to go back. So both Catanias, Richie and Tristan, will be back on track in the A-Squared Cup Series season in 2024. That is wild. Jonathan Homebrink, Kyle Taub, and several others will now have to try to race their way in unchartered as independents to try to make what would be one of 4 spots to make up a 40-car field at Daytona.
Mm-hmm. And there's that thing as well. Again, if you can make that charter range, make it into the field, at the very least, you kind of give the teams that may have passed you up an opportunity. You say, hey, I didn't make the field, but look, I'm here. I can make this field. And you can maybe say, hey, if there's an absentee or if a driver gets dropped or you have to fire someone, what have you, call me. So it's not game over for any of these drivers. If they can drive the wheel off in Daytona in a couple weeks' time and prove themselves, they could easily be knocking the door to find a full-time ride before the season ends, or at least a part-time ride, what have you. But the point is on that point is, again, Catania, Pitcan, both Catanias go back-to-back to end the round here. But, yeah, another interesting path here for Prophecy Motorsports with Feemster's Rights and Tristan Catania. And, again, Catania was a part-time driver last year for Lion Power, now getting a chance to run full-time here.
Yeah, obviously the picks running at the top of your screen. Well, I will go over everything in depth here at the end of the broadcast here. Obviously 3 rounds of draft picks, 27 picks total to make it, and obviously the team owners all racers as well. So 36 cars determined here in this draft process across 3 rounds of drafting here at the top of your board. We're watching the last couple picks scroll up across the top. Richie and Tristan Catania, both of them rounding out this draft in pretty spectacular fashion here for them. Teams thinking that the experience is going to pay off for them. That's going to be the fun thing to sort of keep an eye on as this sort of goes through. Who has been your biggest surprise of all of this?
And we're talking about surprise in the sense of car drivers getting picked late or picked early. Looking at the sport here, I agree with you with looking at Hagan and Zier getting picked late in the second round. That's a bit of a shock to me to agree. We know Zier has a great pedigree in at least next gen machinery. Hagan obviously not as very aggressive, can make sense why he fell. I feel like those were drivers I think we would have maybe saw late first or even early second, but falling all the way to the end of the snake in the second round kind of shocks me a bit at the very least. And looking through the first round here, I think the main shock was Proudfoot falling all the way where he did to Sunny Money Racing. I felt like that was a layup for Presidential Racing, but they felt comfortable with Roberts. I don't want to discredit what they picked, but I felt like he was maybe the second or maybe the third, but he fell down the fifth, which is a bit of a shock to me at the end of the day. But still, that's a good pickup for Sunny Money Racing there with a great driver. But I think everyone's happy with their draft picks. Maybe a few teams like Carolina Beagle wish they got Adams and Mongold. If you're looking at Gear Cats, they probably wish they got Zier, but that's the nature of the beast. But what they had in the picks, I think they're very happy what they had.
Yeah, I don't think you can really complain with this. We're looking at back at round one picks here as everything gets ready here. Gear Cats with Josh Gaiman, Presidential Racing with Brendan Roberts. See if we can get this down in the clear space here at the very bottom of the screen now that we've done with the draft picks here. Give everyone a bit ability to sort of read it. Gear Cats picked Josh Gaiman, then it's Presidential Racing with Brendan Roberts. Jonathan Adams went third overall. That was a big surprise. That was a big jump on the draft board for Jonathan Adams. Carolina Beagle Racing with Patrick Oberstadt, then Brandon Proudfoot going to Sunday Money Racing. Somehow dropped all the way to fifth on the draft board there. That's a scary thought. Sunday Money Racing, they've got a real one with Proudfoot there. Daniel Michelle with Lion Power Motorsports, Black Acid Racing with Dale Markowski. Yeah, several shocks in this first round. The shocks sort of set the tone for this draft. I would have to believe here. Mike LaJoy won the Next Gen Racing. That was a big pick for them. And then Kevin Feemster with Prophecy Motorsports to kick off everything for the first round there.
And now moves nicely into the second round here, as we'll let that flash up here in just a second here. But that first round was the kind of that set the tone, like you were saying, Carmen, the shocks of the draft, where we were thinking, oh, we assumed Gaiman was going to be the first overall pick, but after that we were like, oh yeah, it's gonna be Proudfoot, Roberts. All right, B-Tron will probably pick Proudfoot, maybe over someone else. Adams, obviously keeping the family Oberstadt, but we thought maybe they would have went, if it would have been interesting to see, because I think B-Tron was maybe not B-Tron. Carolina Beagle was maybe thinking Adams would have followed the second round there, pick him up. But that first round, if you look at the board, other than maybe the power rankings got them pretty much spot on there at the very least. What they assumed we picked in the first round ended up getting picked in, like, from power ranking wise, the top 10 was mostly picked in the first round.
Obviously, still working on getting all this converted over here.
So while Carmen does that, I guess we'll fill some more time here, kind of just go over what exactly. Again, just beautiful. We'll take a look actually real fast, as obviously while that goes up, we'll take another quick second to kind of talk about what's coming up here. Obviously, seeing the chat here. Obviously, the Clash is on January 28th. This will be the first opportunity to really see these drivers get used to their new homes on January 28th, and then on February 4th. It is going to be the duels. That is going to set the 40-car field for the Daytona. Well, I said the 500, but Daytona A-squared Daytona race, 250. Thank you. Half distance, I should say. But yeah, that's going to be on the 18th. So we're going to see these new drivers get used to their new homes, the Clash, and then it's off to virtual Daytona. Decide who will set their season off right with a win. And that will all be on ABN 1.
Absolutely, it'll be an ABN 1. Outside of the ARCS A-Squared Cup Series, we have some more work coming up as well. Obviously, the ARCS A-Squared, the HCL Cup Series playoffs, they continue begin tomorrow night at Talladega. Both the HCL Cup Series and the HCL Truck Series at Talladega Monday and Tuesday. That's about 8 p.m. Eastern Time here on ABN Esports 1.
And remember, that Truck Series is the regular season finale. That's going to lead to the chase. So if you want to see drivers run for the hills, trying to get into the playoffs at the last second, that's what's going to happen. 2 wildcard spots up for grabs. And with the wildcard spot still open at the moment with a win, it'll be interesting to see how it plays. So tune in for that. I'll be on the call for that one. Monday will obviously be, Carmen will be doing the Monday race. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays for those next 2 days. But if you like Talladega, tune in here the next 2 days. You're going to see that.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of excitement there. Obviously, the Champ Car preseason testing is on Wednesday at Chicagoland. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. Getting everything ready to go for the return of Champ Car to ABN screens. We've been waiting so long to be able to bring Champ Car back, and to be able to do so is going to be so much fun. We can't wait for it here. Again, that's Wednesday. Not going to be live streams, but you'll be able to follow everything up on it on our social media.
And that will move us nicely to what we saw in the second round here. second round here. Prophecy Motorsports going to, not Prophecy, that was the draft. Yeah, it's Serpentine, but Prophecy Motorsports had the first pick. They went with David Wright. Thought he would have been the first round pick, but they went Feimster and Wright. But regardless, they both got their drivers they felt comfortable with. Then Dustin Painter. Joshua Battles, another shock, was ranked 30th in the power rankings. Bit of a rookie. We didn't have much about him, but Black Ass Racing felt confident with that. And then it moved to Connor Knowlton for line power. They ended up taking another big swing at it. They went for another driver that we weren't on our boards. Then Sunnyman Racing went Alan Spikowski. Then you got the HTL invasion with Wygant, Hagen, and Zier, with Beagle Racing, Beachon Racing, and Presidential Racing right there. And then Gear Cats was probably hoping to get Zier, ended up getting Sharp to end up round number 2. And again, looking at that kind of range here, like I said, it was the HTL invasion near the end. And then in the middle, we kind of just saw some drivers that were on our power rankings. We were like, okay, they're good. And then you see like Knowles, who was the Knowlton, that was the 32nd ranked driver. You got Joshua Battles, the 30th ranked driver in the power rankings. And the NA, it kind of proves that the power rankings at the end of the day are just power rankings. These drivers kind of use that power rankings a bit of a understanding, like, okay, this is where we should look. But at the end of the day, with the testing and what they know and who they know, they could easily kind of override this and pick a driver they truly feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and that really kind of set the stage, I think, big time for the final stage, where we kind of knew that things were not going to go quite as people were expecting. I think a lot of people expected their draft stock to be a little bit higher, if not or lower. And I think some people were generally surprised that they were going to get picked the way they were. But that is the magic of the draft. That's why the draft is such a cool element there for ARCS. Drivers now going to have to spend the next couple weeks to get used to their new teams before the biggest race of the season to kick things off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some it's changing addresses. For others, it's just staying in the same house, maybe just moving over a slot like David Wright. But at the end of the day, it's quite very interesting at the very least to see, again, new faces, new names, some changing addresses, but it's still going to be the great A² ARCS contingency in racing you love, just over a slightly more condensed schedule. But yeah, it's going to be, with Reynolds not on this list, it's going to be a new champion. There will not be a repeat champion. The question is, well, a repeating champion, I should say. We could see another driver win another championship that's already won one, like Breo or Seth Wansing. But there will be a new champion afoot, and one of these drivers will like to edge their name in A² lore, or ARCS lore, I should say.
Yeah, working on getting everything polished up here for round 3, because we have a bunch of draft picks to go over here. We'll go ahead and do that. Round 3 draft picks. Gearcats kicked off round 3 of Michael Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw Elrich George of Presidential Racing. Obviously, we talked about drivers that weren't changing anything. Elrich George was one of those drivers that got to stay put in this draft. Austin Mongold moved from Carolina Beagle to Beatron Racing. And then Carolina Beagle Racing went ahead and picked Kenneth Cheney to round out their squad, with Sunday Money Racing following up with Jacob Delgado. Ross Baxter getting in with Line Power Motorsport. Black Acid Racing with Brian Rupert. They picked him, a familiar face, to come back to the team. And then it's the duo of Catanias running out the draft. Next Gen Racing picking Richie Catania, and Prophecy picking Tristan Catania to round out the draft of 27 picks.
Yeah, this was the draft again where we saw drivers that, again, this was the first round was you pick based on what you pick the best available. The second round was a pick of either the best available or maybe what you feel comfortable with. The third round, this was pure the comfortable round. You picked the drivers you either felt comfortable with, or you picked the drivers that you saw in testing or had a little knowledge of that you're like, all right, I feel like this is the best choice we got. And obviously, like Gearcats, they don't know probably much. They saw a little bit of testing from Michael Cheeseburger Lawrence. They were like, okay, we'll take a chance on that. Kenneth Cheney, Carolina Beagle, after probably won Austin Mongol, like, all right, we'll go with Cheney. Delgado with Sunday Money Racing. This is the perfect example of I wouldn't say sleepers per se, but drivers that chips on his shoulder. They're going to go into Daytona and they don't have a full-time ride, but they're going to sit there and be like, all right, why wasn't I picked in the first round? Why wasn't I picked in the second round? They're going to take this, they're going to use this momentum, and they're going to try to be a force to be reckoned with. And I do will throw a bold prediction out of here. Someone in this third round right now that we're looking at will make the playoffs come playoff time in how many many weeks that will be. That will be on July 21st. So when we get to the summer months in July 21st, I'm throwing on record right now, someone in this third round will be in that round of 16.
Very interesting prediction there. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of races to figure it out here. Again, we're going to be off next Sunday, but then racing begins on the 28th from LA, the Coliseum Clash, to kick off the season. It's an exhibition race. February 4th is when the season begins to ramp up the qualifying duels for the ARCS Daytona 250 on February 4th. So that's the next two events coming up here for the ARCS A-Square Cup Series, sponsored by Midwest Barbecue. For everyone that tuned in, we appreciate you spending your evening with us here on ABN Esports 1. The draft has been completed. Now it's time for drivers to get down to business and get ready for the season. On behalf of everyone here for ARCS, for Midwest Barbecue, the A-Square Cup Series, Meal Racing Designs, and everyone here at ABN Studios, commentator Kevin Young, I'm Carmen Sienna. Thank you all so much for a wonderful night from ABN Studios. We'll see you again. We'll see you tomorrow night at Talladega. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, have some fun. We'll see you tomorrow night. So long, everybody.